of the fact that the immigration minister can actually step in here and say, no, you're done, and not only done for this year, you're done for 3 years pending appeal.
Wow.
So your best player is gone from the next 3 editions of the Australian Open. That is the powers
high stakes
that are at the hands of the immigration minister in Australia right now.
Right, okay. Oh, and welcome back.
You too.
Is this your first time back?
First time back in studio, yeah. Just dipped the toe in the 2022 water last week via Skype, via my dungeon of isolation, I think it's fair to say.
The 16th of December was the last time that we were in studio together. I didn't even know if you were in that day, were you?
That was the day Djokovic tested positive for COVID.
Was it? All right. Yeah, well, I tested positive 2 days later.
There you go. You've got a lot in common.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Yeah. Similar athletic profile.
How are you feeling?
I was knocked out for the first 3 or 4 days. Obviously then you're in isolation for 10 days from the 18th to the 28th of December. Nothing much happens. Kind of quiet enough time of the year anyway.
No, especially when you got kids.
You definitely wouldn't want to be around other people for that.
Well, good thing is that you don't have to get a booster, right?
So I got the booster on the Saturday morning. Started feeling bad on the Saturday evening. Actually, it was the 19th I tested positive, so I didn't get out to the 29th. That's not great. And I put down feeling bad to the booster, and then did an antigen test and was like, bollocks. Did a second one and was like, no, the first one worked. Shit. So
that's unfortunate timing.
But that was in real time exactly what happened.
You can almost see the bubble of immunity around Gerrard Gilroy in studio this morning, folks. This sort of booster / actually contracting COVID-19 veneer that you got.
And well done to you on finally contracting it, because I know you tried pretty hard for the month before that. You put yourself in every available situation where COVID was rampant and somehow emerged the other side of it going, I must be immune.
I did. I mean,
where did you get it in the end?
I don't
know.
Did
you work it out?
I really don't know. All I know is that
the amazing parties that you were at.
Do you know what happened was I actually did a bit of exercise, and I think exercise gave me Omicron. I think that's what happened. I went out for a cycle, and then the next day I was like, oh, feeling a bit achy this morning. Jeez, I didn't know that cycling can give you pain all across your back.
Oh, and every time you go for a cycle, something really bad happens.
Something very bad happens. It destroyed my entire 2021, basically. It just set off a sequence of events that culminated in me testing positive for COVID at the end of the year. So we're here, and fortunately I didn't get the booster. Like, not that it makes any difference. It's just that sort of a real wasted feeling, isn't it? I suspect.
Getting the booster?
If I got the booster the morning of getting COVID, I would have been like,
now I'm like, come at me.
Yeah,
let's be having you.
I guess so. Like, I mean, what have you got?
I don't know. I mean, does that mean I can wander around, licking surfaces and going, look at me, I'm triple vaxxed and I had the thing?
Yes, you can stand on Grafton Street with a sign that says free hugs, and people can come up to you and get the first piece of bodily contact that they've had in 3 years for free and in a safe way, because we've got the most COVID-free man in the world right now.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
Yourself, you and Novak Djokovic, the most COVID-free people in the world right now. It must be great to be in such company.
Well, it turned out Djokovic had it twice.
There you go.
Yeah, the court documents this morning have released the interview that he did with the Border Patrol. Those lovely people that you see on that TV show that you flick past from time to time. Have you ever watched more than 2 minutes of that?
No, never.
I've definitely watched 2 minutes and gone, why am I wasting my life?
It's the same episode all the time. It is the same type of person who trying to get into the country smuggling something pretty benign,
like a chicken.
Generally chicken, yeah, or some sort of meat substitute, and they tend to not get into the country, funnily enough. Whereas on this occasion,
it was the greatest tennis player that the world has ever seen.
It turns out things actually work out a little bit differently.
Right, we're not going to give too much of that away. OTBAM is brought to you by Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette. Put your best face forward with their new and improved razors. We are an Omicron-free zone here today, but if you're out there and you've got a COVID story you'd like to share with us in our YouTube comments, then I'm very interested to see what people have to say. We've got a performance rankings coming right now. Ty Bracey is going to talk to us about Aston Villa, who have signed Coutinho. Is it the Barcelona Coutinho or is it the Liverpool Coutinho? Can Steven Gerrard somehow wrangle the performances that made him one of the best players in the Premier League back from Coutinho? They play Man United in the Cup tonight. Jack Anderson is going to join us from Melbourne at 8:25 to give us exactly how and why Novak Djokovic has been freed. The sports pages at 8:35. We'll talk to Colin Mullaney at 8:40 with the sports news. Mike Carlson was up late watching a wild night in the NFL last night, where the final playoff position went down to the final seconds when the Raiders beat the Chargers to get through. Alan Quinlan is going to talk to us at 9:10. And we have a discussion from the Meath ladies football team, who are the All-Ireland champions, the Meath women's football team, who are the All-Ireland champions from 2021. It is 2022, and it is time for the first performance rankings. Is it the first performance? Is it the performance rankings last week? It's the first performance rankings of the season.
It's the second performance rankings of 2022.
Okay.
That wasn't an All-Ireland winning performance.
Probably should have won the game based on their second half performance.
Is it a step too far to say it was the performance so far of the World Cup? Maybe not.
OTBAM's performance rankings with Gillette.
I'm scratching my head. That performances was just lacked that intensity.
How would you rank your own performance in your own isolation? What was your were you red? Were you amber? Were you green? Owen? What were you? Were you green? What did you do for the 10 days?
Knocked isolation out of the ballpark.
Right.
Getting COVID in Kerry rather than Dublin was a
good
big
decision.
Philip. Yeah, big Philip. Actually having
You had someone to look after you.
Someone looked after me. The only downside was not being able to make your own coffee, but other than that, I mean, everything else is...
Oh, shots fired at the coffee
fired,
making.
Yeah,
right.
100%. Well, merely the volume of it, because you've essentially got to expose yourself to your family as a ridiculous caffeine fiend by texting them every so often saying, like, I'm twitching here. Please drop up more coffee. But you can't do that, so you just go without it.
Got a kettle in the room, though, no?
But what do you do with the milk? No fridge in the room.
I mean, it was cold enough.
Did you expect me to drink black coffee? I mean, what sort of level have we got to here?
Yeah, Jesus, okay. First world problems. Yeah. What did you watch?
Well, so for the first few days, it was like absolute gorging on festive football and darts. I mean, there was so much sport going on. There was NFL week 17 in the middle of it all as well. The timing just could not have been more perfect. And then for the second half of it, you could have just watched all the things that you wanted to watch anyway, whether it was the Beatles on Disney.
I didn't watch it.
Which was perfect for having hours and hours and hours to yourself. Netflix did a good selection of movies this year, I felt, and got through a lot of that. And then you're getting to 9 or 10 and you're like, I really wish it was a 14-day isolation. I'm like, I could do this a lot more often.
There's definitely a period where you acclimatise to it and you become institutionalised and you're like, oh, someone's bringing me all my meals.
Yeah.
And I don't have to do anything really. I don't really have to wash that much. I mean, I can. It makes me feel better when I do. But if I don't, it's a victimless crime.
The only reason I showered was because it killed 15 minutes every day. That was the only reason I showered. It was not for any sort of hygienic purposes whatsoever. It was just something to do, and it was just to feel something.
It did make me think that if they gave everybody in prison Netflix, then prison would be a much calmer place and everybody would be happy enough to be there.
Yeah, I guess so.
We have this thing where you're not allowed to have access to the outside world for fear you might set up a criminal enterprise. Like, give everybody the internet. Let them whatever themselves into,
Absolutely. Let Drive to Survive take over and let that be the topic of conversation about joy.
It's again, who says no?
How did you celebrate Christmas? Is that the right word?
Captive audiences all over the place. They could be test audiences for, is this program any good? Is Squid Games any good? It's like you blasted into the world's prisons.
Yeah,
and they're just sitting there going.
Focus groups would die immediately.
I had Christmas dinner
on your own,
on my own. I watched my kids open their Christmas presents on WhatsApp. It was great. It was like, this feels good.
Well, it's always next year, right?
They were like, this is okay, apart from the fact that you weren't there. Although there was no daddy tax on our chocolate this year, so that was good.
There was no what on your chocolate?
Daddy tax.
What does that mean?
I come along and eat.
Oh, sorry.
Whatever they get. It's
amazing. Yeah. So I mean that's pretty grim. Not going to lie. But I guess there was some sort of comfort in the fact that everybody was going through it, right?
Well, exactly, and you make it through, and it's totally fine when you consider that. We were. Well, I was triple vaxxed at that point, so I kind of figured this was going to work out okay. But so I'd say I was an amber. I got through. I think Black Mirror might be overrated.
Oh, you went Black Mirror during lockdown?
Started Black Mirror.
Isolation.
Yeah, it wasn't a good idea. It wasn't a good idea. I think maybe I need not to be like. There were definitely times at the start when I was a bit delirious, and I'm like waking up and watching an episode of Black Mirror and going back to sleep and watching another one. It's like, and then I just got into Seinfeld and watched like 4.5 seasons.
That's probably a better choice rather than seeing Black Mirror, which is essentially a reality-based television show. The later and later you watch it into life, I find.
Yeah. Okay. Right. What are the actual performance rankings? Who's in red?
In red this morning, we're going with the Premier League first off, because what we've got at the moment are two of the biggest inconveniences to Premier League managers, which are cup competitions, the FA Cup, and also the African Cup of Nations, which of course, you must remember that the AFCON does not exist for any reason other than to make Jurgen Klopp angry and to make other Premier League managers angry. That is the sole purpose of the African Cup of Nations. There isn't even football to be played here. So what we've actually got over the course of the last 48 hours, I want to say, is that these two big inconveniences are actually pretty good. Like, I know that there's always a lot of chat when you get to the third round of the FA Cup, if we start there, about the magic being gone and, you know, the good old days of the FA Cup. And, like, I'm just not sure if that's true. I'm just not sure if the magic has gone from the Cup. Sure, it may not have the same level of importance as before. That's one thing. But it doesn't mean that the magic doesn't exist.
No.
It just means that people don't subscribe to the magic as much as they used to. Like, I mean, there were some incredible results over the course of the weekend. Like, one of the best sporting moments of 2021 was Leicester City beating Chelsea in the FA Cup final. That even when you get beyond the sort of giant killing potential of the third and fourth rounds, you do get some good heavyweight clashes or some good upsets, even in the most meaningful rounds of the FA Cup. I just think it gets a really hard time, and I think the weekend proved that not like that this still serves a real function, a real kind of source of storylines for people who are tired of the churn of the Premier League.
The Cambridge brought the David Blaine, didn't they? That was a bit of magic, the illusion of the cup.
Yes, I see what you did there. It's kind of, without locking themselves away. I guess Newcastle are the David Blaine of this situation, kind of 40 days and 40 nights starved without any sort of level of success.
And then like actually dying at the end of it.
And actually, it's a prank.
Restarted.
It's actually a prank. It's gone very, very badly on Newcastle United. But see, that's the thing. You can get to live these hilarious Premier League storylines in even funnier form. Like, I mean, Newcastle getting beaten by Watford is funny, but Newcastle getting beaten by Cambridge United is much funnier. Arsenal is stumbling and finding ways to lose to Manchester City on New Year's Day. That was objectively funny for anybody who's not an Arsenal fan. But them losing to Nottingham Forest yesterday, I presume that's objectively funnier. This is like the FA Cup can actually take some of the Premier League elements and just make them better.
I think that, like, the richest football club in the world by ownership, right? Oh, but it's not the ownership. But we know it is. In Newcastle being beaten by Cambridge is one of the best stories that has happened, and that will happen in this year. It's the World Cup at the end of the year in Qatar, right? If one of the rank outsiders were to win that, it might just about match Cambridge beating. And I was listening to the lads on Saturday, Dan McDonnell and Johnny and Damien Delaney with John Duggan, and they were making the point that Newcastle had puffed up this game as like a big game, so they picked their full team.
Yeah, full stadium.
Unveiled Trippier. Like, they must have had some kind of special offer because it was close to a sellout, and the owners sent their posse over, and they were all sitting there watching the game going, what did we buy? What did we buy? What's this? Which is, as you say, objectively funny.
It is. It's absolutely fantastic. And I guess it didn't factor in the fact that the Cambridge United goalkeeper was going to have one of the greatest days of his life. And he was absolutely phenomenal. I mean, Newcastle United probably should have scored, probably should have won the game in the first half, but they didn't. And long may this continue. I mean, there's a lot of people experiencing a good deal of schadenfreude, I feel, with the Novak Djokovic thing at the moment. I'm sure there's an even greater tranche of people experiencing that with Newcastle United, and in the Championship next year, that will be a very entertaining watch if things don't go too well for them trying to get promoted.
Might be what they need to just, you know, have a season in the Championship to find their identity.
Who knows? Maybe that's the thing that works for them, and maybe they could be the giant killers next year, taking down a Premier League side. But I just think that there was just so many good stories, so many things that like came close as well. I mean, I'm sure we would have been talking quite a bit about Morecambe right now had they managed to hold on against Tottenham yesterday, for example, and a huge Irish contingent involved in that game. You had the Kidderminster story against Reading on Saturday, albeit a little bit of crowd trouble there. I just think it shows up these great stories that I genuinely just don't think that the Premier League has on a week to week basis, especially once you get into this period now where Manchester City are going to run away from everything. So that's one of the reasons why we've got it in the red. But also the other element of, from yesterday anyway, was the African Cup of Nations starting, and I'm not sure that you get drawn into this at all. Like, I'm a sucker for a new tournament starting and just completely hopping on the bandwagon. But yesterday was fun. Yesterday was very fun. The opening game was between Cameroon and Burkina Faso. Your beloved Bertrand Traore, possibly the best player on the park. Great assist to put Burkina Faso 1-0 up to try and dent the party atmosphere going on in Yaoundé. And the team just then proceeded to give away two of the most ridiculous penalties you're ever likely to see, and shooting themselves in the foot. They should be okay to get out of their group, but all of a sudden you've got a cause. You're like, there's a bit of injustice here. They've been let down by a couple of bad decisions, going in for a couple of robust challenges when they shouldn't have. They've been screwed over by themselves here a little bit, and you're all of a sudden you're like, I'm rooting for Burkina Faso here to do something good. Beyond that though, today is a day where you want to hop on a bandwagon, because you've got Comoros making their AFCON bow, a country with 900,000 people. In 2008, they ranked 198th in the world, with only 2 teams below them in the FIFA World Rankings. Their manager has led a crusade of going to France, trying to persuade people to look into their ancestry, to come and play for the islands. And subsequently, they drew 0-0 with Togo in March last year, qualifying for their first ever major tournament, to widespread jubilation around the islands, as you can imagine. And they make their bow this evening against Gabon, I think it is. So if you want a bandwagon, that is the bandwagon for you. The second smallest population-wise country taking part in the AFCON, the smallest of course being Cape Verde, who got the win last night. So these are all the storylines that you can I guess feast on when you're not watching.
Inspired by one of
Manchester City 3, Newcastle 1. Inspired by which?
One of the lads from Rovers.
Yes, exactly. That Cape Verde, of course. Yeah, Lopez was centre back for them yesterday. I know that they've got a diary of him in the Indo at the moment, and that's just one of a multitude of different stories that you can pick up right now and get on the bandwagon.
I would not have been able to pick out Comoros on a map. I would not, until I just Googled it there.
Yeah, I think...
do you know where it is?
It's just north of Madagascar, right?
Yeah.
So, beautiful place to go, I suspect.
I'd say it's unbelievable.
I mean, we should...
Home team advantage there. It's... yeah, it's in the Indian Ocean. There's loads of little islands there that look, I'm sure, are unbelievable.
Yeah, well, there you go. So 7 o'clock tonight for anybody who's looking for a 2022 team to support. The Comoros are for you. I mean, they'll probably finish bottom of a pretty tough group, but that's the part of trying to find a fairy tale.
Leanne Kiernan scored a hat-trick in is it called the First Division? Is it called the Championship? The second
Women's
tier
Championship, yeah.
The WSL for Liverpool.
Yeah.
So another reason for people not to just watch Premier League football.
6 minutes as well is all it took her to score the hat-trick.
We're going to the World Cup.
Yeah, 10 in the season in the league for Leanne Kiernan at this point, and hopefully see a bit more of her playing for Vera Pauw's side this year. So that's the Premier League in the red this week. I've stuck Ulster in the red. I mean, just because we're going to be chatting a bit about Munster this morning, as you can imagine, and they haven't been great over the last couple of weeks. Johan van Graan maybe took issue with being questioned about how poor they were before kickoff on Saturday night. But I think we should probably mention that Ulster also failed to beat 14-man Munster. Granted, you're away, it's Thomond Park, but I mean, you could hear the individual voices in Thomond Park. This was not a full stadium, obviously.
No.
This was not the fortress it was. Simon Zebo gets a red card, and you still can't put the team away. I don't know. I think that's been kind of glossed over a little bit after Saturday night.
Oh yeah.
I'm happy to get into Munster right now, but I think that maybe Ulster not beating a poor Munster team, a Munster team playing poorly at the moment, down a man. I think that's probably an underrated storyline from the weekend.
There was definitely. In the red card incident, I didn't see the whole game. I saw either side of the red cards, and the Hugh Cathal asked in commentary, have you ever seen an incident where there were 2 red cards?
Yeah.
I think it was 2 red cards, wasn't it?
I don't know if Crowley's shoulder actually makes contact with the head.
I think it makes contact with the head first,
and then it goes into Zebo's shoulder.
I think so, yeah.
Right.
Look, if the referee had come, the referee wanted to just show yellow, which was like,
I wonder.
And then there's this kind of anxious pause from the TMO. I'm just going to show you that one more time. Just going to show that to you one more time. The conversation should be a bit more honest, shouldn't it? I think.
The conspiracy theorist inside me thought that the TMO had a feed of Hugh Cathal and Donal Lenihan commentating on the game, because they immediately go, that's a disgraceful decision, the yellow card. And it was almost at that moment the whole thing turns.
Well, I don't know. There's definitely open comms the other direction. That everything that they say is heard, and not just the stuff that we hear on TV.
Yeah. With something like that, so the referee's obviously looking at the big screen. I mean, I suspect it's pretty hard to get full definition on, Zebo's shoulder connecting with the head on the big screen. Like, I mean, you can see obviously
That's
the
a fair
tackle
point.
The head goes back.
Picture's not great.
Picture, I presume, is not great, but
It's not like ultra 4K HD.
no, I don't suspect it is. And like, it was driving rain apparently as well in Thomond on Saturday night.
Miserable.
The TMO just let the TMO, I guess, dictate it, and I guess that is what happened.
Yeah, like the whole referee on the pitch, his decision is final. What's the point of that? It's like they should say no. So we'll tell you what we're seeing in HD, and you then just implement what we're saying, because that removes. I suppose arguing against myself here is it does remove the full authority. The referee's decision is final. It isn't. It shouldn't be in this instance. They're like in the NFL. They go to in the final 2 minutes. There's a team office in New York, and they come and they tell you this is what happened, and then you just say, okay, Grant. Well, you guys have better access, more information than we do, and it felt like it. But I mean, it certainly should have been in red and yellow. No.
Obviously, I'm not sure, you see, because I think I saw this differently to you. I think I just saw Crowley is definitely high, but Zebo has the shoulder so high equals yellow, but Zebo has the shoulder to the head. Like, I thought red for Zebo. I think they got it right, personally.
We're burying the lead here, though, right? We are.
Yeah,
So
go for it.
Ulster, what do you do in Ulster? That's essentially why they're in red. What are you doing? Come on, show us that there's something about you. You're up a man. You're up a try. You're playing really well. You've got the confidence. Go and kill them.
I know. Like, I do think though.
Never give a sucker an even break.
Never give a sucker.
Oh, you just did. There's like a.
It is harsh to put Ulster in the red in any of the months of December, January, February, and maybe a bit of March, because Ulster, when they're wearing white, have this hilarious experience where a substitute comes on looking like the alien version of Mr. Burns, just glowing. Coming on glowing, all their teammates and their perfect white kids are completely destroyed. They're just full. There isn't an inch of white on that pristine kit, and then a glow in the dark Ulster person just comes off the bench. So it's very, very harsh to put Ulster in the red.
You must feel like
the
there's a big target on your back as well. It's like, how can I blend in here? I'm just going to do a full slide on the pitch to make sure that I'm not as obvious. Simon Lewis has this in the Examiner, and I haven't seen it anywhere else, so it may well be other places too. But anyway, Victor Matfield was working as part of the South African Supersport TV coverage, and they had the Munster Ulster game. Must be part of the TV rights deal. Anyway, Victor Matfield is on doing commentary and says, I spoke to Johan van Graan. Always good when you're like, good insight here. Victor Matfield, part of legendary status, you would say, like one of the all-time South African greats in any era by any stretch of the imagination. So, it's like, it would be like Paul O'Connell on TV going, I spoke to Johan van Graan. He said it was so frustrating at Munster as all the good players go to Leinster. Van Graan afterwards was asked to both confirm and explain the comment, which had been disseminated widely on social media channels. I'm certainly not going to react to Twitter conversations. I don't even have Twitter, he said. But it wasn't on Twitter. It was just, we found out about it because of Twitter. We don't know what the follow-up is. And then apparently he wasn't very good in the pre-match or as a post-match interview with Rory Kinsella.
No, that's interesting. Like that. First of all, that's fascinating. I hadn't seen that either until you mentioned that.
I spoke to Johan van Graan. He said it was so frustrating at Munster as all the good players go to Leinster. Then you walk into the dressing room and go, all the good players, what are we? What? Well, who's talking about? Me? It's like, what's Conway thinking? What's Tadhg thinking?
But also the kind of wording of that, all the good players go to Leinster. I'm sure that I'm getting bogged down in semantics here. It suggests that there's some sort of migration from Munster to Leinster, and as we know, it's not that at all. It's
the opposite.
Just the knowledge. Good players don't come to Munster. Maybe is maybe more accurate. It does remind me of Tim Howard reading out the Lukaku text on NBC around Christmas and kind of outing his mate Victor Matfield doing this to Van Graan. I'm sure it was done in a pretty benign way, but he's been thrown under the bus a little bit there, because I think Van Graan, while there was, of course, every right, you can criticise whoever the hell you want when you're on television, but I think that the criticism of Van Graan now has got to a point where it's bordering on the unreasonable a little bit in terms of the things that he's saying. This guy is about to leave Munster at the end of the year. He obviously was essentially contracted by the IRFU, so maybe there's this sense in Irish rugby that this guy is deserting Irish rugby, and as a result it's a bit more open season on everything that he says compared to the way it used to be. Like, I think that if you take Van Graan and his comments before the game and have Peter O'Mahony say the exact same things. Peter O'Mahony as an example. I think people would just be like, that's Peter O'Mahony. That's just Munster being Munster.
Yeah.
Like the
so
head coach.
he's commented before the game where I'm not commenting on the Bath situation.
And then also he got, like, I mean, he hit back at Murray Kinsley, who was like, you haven't been great for the last few weeks. Paraphrasing, might have got that a little bit wrong, but that's essentially what he was saying. And Van Graan was like, well, actually, those last 2 weeks, we won one of those games. And he did say it in kind of like a curt manner, for sure. But again, if O'Mahony says something like that, or any of the Munster players, you're like, that's just the players digging in and being stubborn and being
Peter O'Mahony and Reggie going at it, like on TG Car, like, and the Munster fans were like, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, exactly. But
Peter O'Mahony was always there, and he will be there as part of the Munster furniture for the next 30 years, whatever role he plays, whatever involvement or none, even if he just recedes into the background and does nothing rugby related. Whereas this guy, he's taking the money from Bath, and so it's open season because it's fair game, and he is fair game. And so I think that, like, the Van Graan situation, like, it's if they'd lost that game, it was pure lame duck territory. So now they somehow need to bond the team together, and Matfield is not going to help that by talking about what Van Graan said to him in a conversation. And obviously, you know, Van Graan can say, that's not what I said, that's not what I meant, he's completely misrepresented me, but it's out there now. And so that you can't put that genie back in the bottle, and all the other bad analogies that people use about this. It is full-blown crisis time, I think, at Munster, and it's another lost season unless they get their shit together this weekend. O'Mahony and Dialende doubts for a trip to France is the headline on Simon Lewis's other piece. Munster sweating on the fitness of skipper Peter O'Mahony and Dialende. Dialende's got some, they're calling it a weird stomach muscle injury.
Yeah,
that's never good.
That doesn't look good. You want to have the two of them this weekend, but just in isolation of last weekend, like, you paint it there as maybe this could have been in real kind of lame duck territory had they lost at the weekend. So say if they don't get that second half try, I still think that the spirit that the team showed in the first half was pretty good. It's not the sign of a team who've lost any faith in their coach, and I think that if the players are going to be given a lot of credit for the way they responded to losing Simon Zebo, like, I think the coach deserves a bit of credit for that as well. I mean, like, you can't just attach all the negatives to Van Graan and all the positives to the players.
No, fair enough. Yeah, like the spirit is there. He isn't lame duck. Right, I didn't say that he was lame duck, but if they'd lost at the weekend, it was getting to that point really quickly. You know, this can go off the rails really quickly, and that's why that was a huge moment for them. But they've got to back it up. They've got to back it up next weekend, and they've got to go on a roll now until the Six Nations. And I don't know, I haven't seen the updated fixture list. Are there going to be some games during the Six Nations? No,
I'm not sure.
Right, well, we'll wait and see. But yeah, difficult situation that they find themselves in, and I can see why. You put Ulster in the red. If we were going to put Munster at anything, maybe they've progressed to amber this week.
I think so.
All right.
Okay. I think they get the win when it looked like they were in a bit of crisis during the game, and a couple of the young players, Thomas Ahern in particular, stepped up, and he's been somebody that we've spoken about in the show quite a bit in the past.
It's a great job.
Like,
it's a great job. Somebody should really want that job.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, Ulster losing to Munster in Thomond Park, even with 40 men, it's not an outrageous defeat for Ulster. That's the thing, because Munster have a lot of good players, a lot of very good players. So it is a good job.
A reminder, every Monday on OTBAM, we give you the chance to win a Gillette starter pack. All you got to do is get in touch with your suggestions for who should make the cut for our performance rankings. Put them in red, put them in amber, put them in green, put them whatever, and we'll read out a winner at the end of the show. We've got 3 to get through here in the next 7 minutes, so...
Well, we'll go through these extremely quickly then. In the amber is the Dubs. I guess Desi Farrell retiring Stephen Cluxton this weekend? Or can a GAA player truly be retired? Can we trust that a GAA player has been retired without a statement full of platitudes, full of vanilla copy, screenshotted from their iPhone notes and posted on their Twitter account? Can we trust that the player is truly retired? I'm not sure we can, but it seems that as close to the line as you can possibly get is where we've arrived after Saturday, that Stephen Cluxton's inter-county career is over. Desi Farrell saying that he's not going to feature this year, essentially ruling out a return for Paul Mannion, who may not play again for Kilmacud in this All-Ireland series either, and Jack McCaffrey obviously being ruled out as well for the year ahead. So I guess in a way this kind of lessens the noise around Desi Farrell and these Dubs straight away, and that's why they're in the amber.
The only thing is I hadn't even heard the rumours about a couple of the lads going travelling, Conor Callan and Brian Howard, that he also nixed in his post-match chat with the journalists at the board, Namona what's the name of the tournament? O'Byrne Cup. Anyway, he was like, there's a load of rumour mill around the Dubs always. These lads, they're not going travelling, they're available for us. I was like, I didn't even hear that. Was that widely?
I hadn't heard that either,
Right,
to be
okay,
honest.
so-
Not just you. I'm not tuned into to the rumour mill as much as other people are. Like, I do think that this can be leaned on as a positive. I just don't understand how it still got to this place where the noise hasn't fully gone away at the start of 2022, and even then, as I say, like, I'm 99% sure that Stephen Cluxon is gone, but there's still that little
it's
wriggle.
over. What are you talking about?
no, like-
This is your carry misinformation. You kick back in. You had 10 days in isolation going, how can we make this difficult for everybody? Look at you.
But I'm looking at my screen because I'm looking to see where it's actually says Stephen Cluxon has retired. Like,
He won't be available.
he won't be available this year. Stephen won't be involved this year. He wasn't
He's not
involved
coming
last
back
year.
next
Stephen's not
year.
much big announcements. No, I know that, but I'm still giving myself like 1%. All I'm saying is that, like, this could have been cleared up sooner. It could have been cleared up before the championship last year. This has been going on for almost 12 months at this point, and I think that it's a good thing for Dublin that this is finally put to bed. They can get on with whoever's going to be in goals for them over the course of the year. Chances are it is going to be Evan Comerford, but I know he didn't play on Saturday. He's going to be trying out a lot of different players, but at the same time, Farrell's going to be looking at players like Kieran Kilkenny, who played in the O'Byrne Cup for the first time in 8 years, I think it was, on Saturday, and to win over Offaly. So the Dubs are back this year, and they're taking this thing seriously. Not that anybody would expect them to do otherwise. And I think that this little bit of a clearing up on Saturday is a good thing for Dublin.
Yeah, no problems. Barbalatza83 on YouTube says, I watched the URC on Supersport South Africa on Saturday. Matfield's comment was nothing but a throwaway remark.
Right.
Well, there you go. But what did he mean, though? It's a throwaway remark that he obviously... Was he just name dropping? He's name dropping, oh, look at me, I'm talking to Johan van Graan, and this is what he said? Or was it nothing? Nothing? Or was it something nothing? Dora the Explorer says, hey Dora, Johan van Graan was just straight up snarky to Murray, back against the wall. But his back is against the wall. Like, things could go really horribly tits up for him at the moment. And David says, the Phil and Holly of the OTB world are back. Thanks very much.
Which one is which is the question. Who's the... Yeah, I mean...
You shouldn't have asked that on.
I shouldn't. That is going to... The comments will be aflame over the next few minutes.
Quickly in green.
Quickly move on to green. Green, Ballygunner have to be in green. They were absolutely sensational yesterday, to the point where they've got... Like, it was almost like a Dublin level performance where it became boring at one point. Kilmallock were expected to put up a much bigger fight than they were. They weren't expected to win the game, sure. Ballygunner have had a lot of bad memories in the Munster Hurling Championship over the last few years, and for them to actually get over the line yesterday wasn't a sure thing. But 320 to 112 was the full-time score. If you missed it yesterday, Desi Hutchinson with 1-5, Pádraig Mahoney with 7 points. It's an unbelievably stacked forward line. Billy O'Keefe got 1-3. He looked class yesterday. Everybody, and I'm kind of a little bit this has given me a little bit of a pause for thought for a moment, is that everybody's looking forward to this Ballygunner versus Ballyhale All-Ireland final, and I just think that if you say that to anybody in Schlottneil, for example, right now, they'll be licking their chops at that prospect. Yes, it is the final that would see the two best club hurling teams in the country possibly go toe to toe, but I just wondered if there's going to be another twist in the tail before we actually get there. The other club action yesterday then was the Connacht final between Pearses and Knockmore. There wasn't as much of a clear winner in this one. Knockmore were disappointing, I think it's fair to say, but there was a couple of good moments in this. Pearses get their goalkeeper black-carded in the first half, and their full forward Hubert Darcy goes in goal. Like, usually for me it's like the full back or the corner back. I wonder and there was this kind of situation where the ref has to stop play and the goalkeeper who's just been black-carded has to come on with the jersey to give to Hubert Darcy, who slowly puts it down over his jersey, and he gets yellow carded for time wasting. There's a ball on the pitch at one point during the black card. They used that 10 minutes to perfection. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. Hubert Darcy goes back into the forwards in the second half, kicks a lovely score from play.
You love a good bit of shithousery as long as it's not against your team.
But also during that, exactly.
I mean,
who was different? Show me anybody who's any bit different to that.
Well, the wages of sin are death, Eoin. The wages of sin are death. It'll happen to you. Tyrone will do unto Kerry onto Jack O'Connor what history decrees they will do this year, and you'll be like, I can't believe that goalkeeper.
True. Yeah, I will, 100%.
Come on with it,
and I'm okay
jersey.
with that hypocrisy. But one of my favourite moments, though, and I think it was during the black card yesterday, was that Pearce has had a free kick, and there was a fella, one of his teammates was down injured with the ball in his hand, and instead of telling him to stay down, he literally grabbed him by the scruff of the neck and was like, get up, even though like he could have like done his Achilles or something like that. He literally grabbed him to the ground, and I was like, that is not how you shit house. You're supposed to tell him to stay down and stay there until this black card is expired. But no, Pearce's were very good yesterday. Paul Carey, the corner forward, is absolutely class. He kicked 8 points for them and was man of the match.
The tension between the hyper-masculinity of never showing your opponent you're injured and the added benefit of the extra 30 seconds of faking injury is like still, it's alive. It's a petri dish in the true Gale's brain. He's like, oh, can't show weakness. Oh, need to cheat. Oh, am I going to fix this? Number 1, Novak Djokovic in green.
Yeah, Novak Djokovic, he's probably going to be in. As we say, the decision has been revoked to cancel his visa. The reason for this is that the government basically didn't give Djokovic enough time after notifying him of the intent to cancel his visa to speak to others and to respond fully. So this whole thing just happened too quickly, according to the judge. This thing this morning, a lot of recesses during this case. There was a dodgy stream. A lot of the reporting was interrupted as a result of the dodgy stream. And I guess when you look through the evidence of what was actually shown this morning, it's no surprise that they revoked the decision to cancel his visa. They spoke, I think, for 3 hours, I think, the defence at this point, and the government only gave 30 minutes of evidence. I'm not sure, does that suggest maybe what was actually, who was really fighting for the cause here this morning? But as you said earlier on, the decision can still be possibly changed by the Immigration Department of Australia. They can give us one final twist in this tale and ban Novak Djokovic from Australia for 3 years.
We're going to talk more about this with Jack Anderson a little bit later on, so that's why we're not spending too much time in the performance rankings. But that is this week's edition of the performance rankings. Every Monday morning on OTBAM we give you the chance to win a Gillette starter pack. All you got to do is enter to get in touch with your suggestions for who should make the cut in red, in amber or in green. We're back talking Aston Villa with Ty Bracey next.
OTBAM performance rankings with Gillette.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Are we allowed to enjoy this?
Munster legends Alan Quinlan and Niamh Briggs are joining forces to bring you all the latest analysis, news, interviews and so much more.
You stand back and you watch, you can see why these guys are top internationals.
Has he lost the plot here? Or is it just all good fun? I think it's good fun.
The Red 78 with Alan Quinlan and Niamh Briggs. Available every Wednesday. Don't miss a moment of action. Subscribe to the Rugby channel on the OTB Sports app and turn on your notifications now.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
All right, let's turn our attention to Manchester United against Aston Villa in the FA Cup, and I'm delighted to say Ty Bracey is with us this morning. Ty, good morning to you.
Good morning. Thank you for having me again, boys.
Yeah, good to talk to you. Things have changed. The world has changed a lot since we last spoke, because Philippe Coutinho was not really a rumour, and then a very hard rumour, and then immediately done. It was like if this is how business is going to be done in future around Villa, then it's swift. You got to get ready for a bit of a shock and a bit of a surprise, and then boom, stuff happens. So what's your take on how this whole thing unfolded?
I mean, when I seen the rumours first floating about, as a club, we've been used by agents to maybe get new deals for players and stuff like that. So I didn't get my hopes up too much at first and thought, well, maybe this is just a bit of agent talk. And then the more that time went on, the more reliable sources were talking about it, and I still didn't get my hopes up too much. And then when Villa had dropped that tweet saying it was done, I was over the moon.
There's obviously a little bit of concern with the quality of play and the fitness that he's had over the last couple of seasons, and yet Steven Gerrard knows this. So Villa have a get out of jail clause in that it's only a loan for the rest of the year with the option to buy. So it's not like they've been used stupidly to wind down the contract of this last part of the season by Barcelona. It's like an intelligent design going on in the background, and it's a bit of a shot to nothing, but if it works out, then it's great business.
Yeah, definitely. It was one of those things where Barcelona wanted us to have it was mandatory that we purchased him at the end, and we managed to get ourselves out of that just in case. But I think that Coutinho, under the right manager, still is that player that he was a few years ago, that we've seen playing at Liverpool. And he's shown he's capable of turning up in the Premier League, and that's exactly what we want. And it's a signing of intent to show that we mean business, and Steven Gerrard has that pulling power to bring in the third biggest transfer of all time.
Where's he going to play?
I think it'll be a mixture of centre attacking mid and on the left wing, depending on availability and injuries with other players and what his selection is on the day. But I think predominantly you'll see him playing a 10.
Okay, does that mean Emi Buendia is out of the team?
I think that means Emi Buendia goes out to the right wing. I don't think Coutinho coming in changes anything with Buendia. I think they'll both work great alongside each other. Buendia's had a bit of a slow start in the Premier League with Villa, but now he's finding that confidence, finding his feet, and he seems to be playing much better under Steven Gerrard as opposed to how he did under Dean Smith. So I don't think that's going to be an issue for Buendia.
Okay. Can you give us your first choice team at the moment from midfield up?
So from the three in the middle?
Yeah.
Okay, so if we're going with a 4-3-3 in the midfield attack, I'd say in the middle you're going to have John McGinn, Jacob Ramsey, rotation with Douglas Luiz, Coutinho in the 10, Buendia on the right wing, Watkins and Ings rotation in the striker, and then Bailey on the left wing.
It's not bad, is it?
It's not at all, and that's where we've really got to start pushing on. And I think we're still short. We definitely need a defensive midfielder, and I think we also need another left back option as well. We're heavily linked with Luca Digne. And that's looking like that's wrapping up soon as well. So it's a very exciting time to be a Villa fan. But we've got to start doing stuff on the pitch. We've spent a lot of money. And it's time for us to start pushing up the table. You know, at bare minimum, we need to be finishing top half of the table this year. We had a slow start under Dean Smith this year. But I don't think European football's that far off for Aston Villa.
Yeah, I can see how it's easy to get excited about this as well. And we were talking about this 3 or 4 weeks ago. Before the COVID properly hit Villa and ripped through the squad, it looked like they were about to go on a bit of a run. So I don't know what to make of the Brentford game, for example. Like, that's obviously a proper setback in terms of the very early embryonic career of Gerrard at Villa. What happened there, and how much of that is down to COVID? How much of that down to the vagaries of the Premier League? These teams are all of a fairly similar standard at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, Danny Ings showed up and he gave us exactly what we expected from him. But, you know, we went 1-0 up and Brentford come out hungrier in the second half. And I think it did show a few flaws within our squad, and that we do need to do a little bit more business. And I shouldn't really say this, but I'm glad that happened, because I wouldn't have wanted us to have, you know, had a quiet window if everything was going to start falling apart after the transfer window. I'm glad that those flaws were found against Brentford, because it's shown that we need to do a little bit more business. But I think we're so close now. I think we're on the cusp of things being a lot better at Aston Villa, and hopefully we can put that Brentford game behind us now, and it's on to Manchester United away tonight.
Is there any concern with these signings that some of the best young players that Villa have at the moment won't get the game time they need to develop into Premier League players? There's obviously speculation around different players. The Guardian had a story about Karnik Chupomenko recently saying that he wanted to get out, and then he got straight into the squad immediately after that. So it was interesting what that dynamic was like. I'm desperately keen to see what those players are capable of, but at the same time, this is the Premier League, and you know you've got to earn your stripes. So is there any concern among the Villa faithful that actually we're not going to see enough of the young players?
I mean, there's no concerns personally from me. I think that it's good to have options available on the pitch and have that depth. I think we have a few players from the youth setup who are ready now to play some first team minutes. I mean, we've brought back Kane Kessler from Swindon Town after Steven Gerrard's seen how he's performed against Manchester City on the weekend. He's had an unbelievable game against Man City. He was a standout performer in that game. Karnik Chupomenko's definitely ready for some minutes as well, and Jacob Ramsey's getting that game time also. So it's nice to have those options available, but players being that young, it's so hard for them to walk into, you know, an experienced Premier League team, especially one that are going to essentially soon start pushing for European football. It's hard for them to give them those minutes that they require. But I'd be happy to see all three of them in a rotation within Villa, because they've all shown that they're capable of performing at that level.
Things seem really exciting at the moment, Ty. Where does this level of excitement compare with, say, the Aston Villa that was pushing for Europe and getting there under Martin O'Neill?
It's a similar period, but we've had a lot of heartbreak in between that, haven't we? You know, so a lot of things went downhill after that era with Martin O'Neill. So it's nice we've had a lot of ups and downs, and that season we went down. I had a season ticket that year, and that was, you know, one of the worst years I've ever experienced, you know, being alive. So that wasn't great as a Villa fan. It was tough. And it's just the roller coaster and the magic of football, you know, it's happening to a lot of teams. You know, Manchester United were dominant in football for 20 years under Sir Alex Ferguson, and they're still having issues now. You know, they haven't ever recovered from him leaving. They haven't had that dominance that they had. And we've had our ups and downs, and, you know, getting relegated was the worst thing that could have happened to us. But at the same time, it was the best thing that could have happened to us, because look at where we are now. And that's the important thing, is that we're on that trajectory. We're going to start, you know, pushing up the table, but we need to consistently push up the table. You know, this time last year, we're in a much better position than we're in now, but then we had a poor second half of the season. So let's hope the roles reverse this year and we can start pushing up the table for the second half of the season.
There was a big narrative out there when Steven Gerrard joined the club, through no fault of Gerrard's own, and I'm sure it was something that annoyed a lot of Aston Villa supporters, about this potentially being a stepping stone for the Liverpool gig. Over the last month or so, have you felt that idea outside of Aston Villa supporters has kind of lessened somewhat, that Steven Gerrard and the Aston Villa support groups are already starting to strike up a connection, that this could be home for quite some time for Gerrard?
I think it will be his home for some time for Stevie G, and whether it is a stepping stone to Liverpool or not, and I try and avoid using that term, especially against Aston Villa, because it's commonly used against Aston Villa, is if he wants to go to Liverpool in the future, he has to prove himself at this level. And that won't happen unless he does. And you can see how he talks. He loves Villa. He's loving being at Villa. And he's got a lot to prove. He's got a great squad, few players coming in to start showing what he's capable of as a manager in the best league in the world. And if that is the case down the line where he ends up at Liverpool, I have no problem with that. But he has to prove himself at Aston Villa before that would ever happen, personally.
In a weird way, right? If Gerrard wants the Liverpool gig, how many people in the world would get the Liverpool job if they didn't have Champions League experience? Like, he kind of needs to get Champions League experience, and he's, you know, like, if that happens and then he gets the Liverpool job, Villa fans will be like, fair enough, that's okay, fair enough, you got us to the Champions League, you're entitled now to go off and do your dream job. Like, I wouldn't have any concerns if that was to happen. And, you know, obviously it's completely ridiculous to talk about that right now, but it might not be in a year, 18 months time. So we'll see. Alternatively, he might be a terrible manager. It's so early in his career that, like, you know, fingers crossed that isn't the case. And they certainly seem to be backing him. In terms of the cup, do you want a cup run? Is it really important, Ty? Or is it all literally about just getting league position, top 8 this season, and making sure that the week in, week out vagaries of the league is something that we see huge progress in? How much does tonight matter to you?
As a fan, it's very important to me. I think we've only got past the third round once since 2016, which, you know, isn't great at all. So we do need a good cup run, especially in the FA Cup. You know, there's been a lot of magic over the weekend, and the FA Cup just has some magic about it, of where, you know, you got the likes of Kidderminster Harriers who were beating Reading, and now they're playing West Ham United. You know, you've got fixtures like that, and Morecambe, who were 1-0 up against Tottenham Hotspur for the majority of the game. It's the magic of the FA Cup, and I really would like to see us have a good cup run this year. And Steven Gerrard has openly said in the press that, you know, he will be putting out a full-strength squad this evening against Manchester United. So we're taking it seriously. If we get through this round, we've got Middlesbrough in the next round at home. So that will also be, you know, that'll be interesting for us against Middlesbrough if we can get through today. But that's important to me, the cup run. And I think it's important to the Villa players and Steven Gerrard as well. So that's something I definitely want to see. I want to see us give 100% against United tonight, definitely.
It's obviously a double header against Manchester United this week. It must be a pretty good time, in your opinion, to be playing them.
Yeah, it is. I don't think they're doing as bad as people are thinking. You know, there's always a lot of... It's very easy to report negative things about Manchester United, and you've seen a lot of that across the web. And I think they're not to be frowned upon. They're going to show up today, and we've just got to give absolutely everything. But if there was a version of Manchester United I'd want to play against, it would definitely be this one. So let's just hope that we turn up on the day and we raise the roof.
Do you think they're going to spend much more over this transfer window? They're being linked with Basuma, but again, it's hard to know if that is just agents pushing up prices, because Villa have been active, so now you can add Villa to any conversation. Price goes up, Liverpool have to stump up now, all that kind of stuff that is in the background there. What are you hearing, and what do you think, how active they're going to be for the rest of this?
I think it's very easy to link us with transfers. It happens every window. Rumourville in the transfer window is something that causes me severe issues with my blood pressure, because I'm constantly, I turn into a different breed of human when it's the transfer window and we get linked with somebody. I'm literally just all over it. So I love the transfer window, and it's great. I think we'll do a little bit more business, but only if the business is right. We've made it clear that we're not just going to sign anybody. It has to be the right signing. So I think we may bring in a left back. I think Coutinho could happen. Reports are saying that it's looking likely. With El Ghazi maybe going the other way, but Everton want cash. A DM, I definitely think we do need a DM, 100%. But I'd rather us not sign anyone than sign the wrong one and then wait till the summer. So that's also important, that we're doing the business right and not doing it just for the sake of it. And I also think that we're going to bring in a backup goalkeeper as well. I think that will happen too.
Do you think Gerrard's doing a good job so far in terms of the quality of football and the decisions that he's made?
Absolutely, yeah. The game against Brentford was a tough one, most definitely, and a few people may raise their eyebrows at that game, which is okay. We're a hard fan base to please. We have high hopes for Villa. But after these two Manchester United games, we've got a run of 6 fixtures of where 3 points is definitely achievable in every single game. Now, whether we get 3 points from every game is a different question, but it's games where we can definitely do something, and we should really be pushing for 3 points in every single game. So fingers crossed. The signings we're going to make this window, add to the squad, add to the depth, and we come out flying for the second half of this season.
Ty, great stuff. Thanks a million for joining us again. Cheers, man.
Thanks for having me.
It's Ty Bracey there from Villa Spaces and the Villa View. He's the host of those. You can follow him on Twitter as well for all your Villa news. What do you think, Stephen Gerrard?
He's doing a very good job so far, and I think it is it's been a slight surprise how good he's been. I'm sure people who've watched a lot of Rangers over the last few years would say that that it hasn't been much of a surprise, but I still think that there was huge question marks of him coming to the Premier League and just the standard of opposition that he'd be up against. I think it's just a totally different world managing Rangers to managing Aston Villa, and not just to do with the quality of football, just to do with the number of games you're going to have as the favourite and the number of games you're going to have as the underdog, and he's taken to being the underdog quite well, I think it's fair to say. And I'm sure as an Aston Villa fan you're absolutely thrilled with how it's gone so far. Yeah,
look, the Coutinho thing, you don't want to get too excited about it because he might be completely washed up.
Yeah.
There's a strong possibility that the injuries that he's had have taken their toll. He's 29, and so therefore this is the end of his career. There's also a possibility that he goes and has a late window in his football life that is a flourish. That's not quite the same level when he was at his 23, 24, 25-year-old peak, but that is very good between 29 and 33, and Villa get those years, and he scores 15 goals from the number 10 position. Every free kick that Villa get within 40 yards is like pinpoint accurate. They become, there's the ceiling is high, the floor is really low, and the money you're paying will destabilise if he doesn't perform. So this could be Alexis Sanchez at Man United. This could be Alexis Sanchez at Arsenal.
Absolutely, and the reason why I would kind of agree with that level of concern is that there is sometimes a feel of the luxury player about Philippe Coutinho. And okay, so Douglas Luiz and John McGinn are both brilliant players, but will their level of work and their performances around the field need to go up a notch to compensate for a team that has both Coutinho and Buendia in it? Buendia's been really good recently, but I
think you can turn Buendia into somebody who closes down. Can you turn Philippe Coutinho into someone? So are you ever going to be able to press properly? I don't know.
I'm not sure. Like, I mean, there is a world in which, like, I know that's not the team that he listed out there. He thinks it'll be Bailey on the left hand side, but there is a world where you have like Watkins, Coutinho, and Buendia playing behind Danny Ings. Unbelievable talent in that quartet for sure. Is that a team that are going to be good enough without the ball, though?
I wouldn't be terribly surprised if they sell Danny Ings to Newcastle.
I mean, I wouldn't either. I think that it looked like a really good signing, and I think I actually might have tipped him as potential signing of the season at the start of the year. But I think that if you're picking between Ings and Watkins in terms of the overall game, not just as a poacher and a goal scorer, I think Watkins sometimes maybe gets in ahead of Ings if you're picking that team. Granted, the actual Villa expert there said that Ings would be starting ahead of Watkins in his starting 11.
Or they would rotate, and like it's possible that they replace Danny Ings with somebody who's more in keeping with what Gerrard wants to do. Like maybe Gerrard makes it work out with Danny Ings. It's hard to know. Yeah,
it's true. But like also, I mean, the emergence of Ramsey over the last month or two has been really encouraging from an Aston Villa perspective, and I get why Ty would be a little bit concerned about what the young players are going to do and the opportunities that they get given. But it's someone like Jacob Ramsey having an extra competitor for a midfield spot, if we want to call Coutinho a midfielder. It's having an extra player there going to hold him back, or is it actually just going to help him? Are his minutes going to be managed a little bit better? Is the pressure going to be off him a little bit more? It might do. And yes, there are other kids in the team as well who are obviously going to be down one rung in the pecking order. But I think having someone like Coutinho in the squad around you is potentially a really good thing for someone like Jacob Ramsey.
You would hope so. Is Luca Dean any good?
I wouldn't be. I haven't ever been overly impressed with him on a consistent level. Of course, what he can do from a dead ball, what he can do technically can be superb. I would be concerned about how things have gone from at Everton over the last few months. We don't know the full story there as to why Rafa has fallen out with him, but it doesn't fill me with confidence about somebody who's going to come in and add something to the dressing room. Like, I think Villa and their full backs recently with Target and Cash have been very good for them, and yes, I can see why you'd want an upgrade, but on Target that is. But I'm not sure if Dean is going to be a sustainable option there. I think that he'll come and he might bang in a couple of direct free kicks between now and the end of the season, and
they're going to be pretty good for direct free kicks, turns out.
Yeah, and like he'll do the spectacular quite well. I just have a little bit of concern about how things have gone for him recently at Everton, about what he's actually going to bring to a club.
Yeah, okay. Well, the Sky Sports Transfer Centre are saying that he's among Premier League players. Only Trent and Andy Robertson have created more clear-cut chances since the start of last season.
Yeah, he's exceptional going forward. There's no getting away from that, and it's an exciting. It's a really exciting. Him and Coutinho will not make Aston Villa more boring to watch. They will make them appointment viewing, and I think that in fairness, Villa are already appointment viewing at this point. They've been really good under Steven Gerrard, and to be honest with you, they were at the start of the season as well under Dean Smith. They just really quickly lost their way in October, November, and I think they've been excellent since they've come back into the Premier League. Very, very exciting to watch, even after Grealish has left. So I think you throw Dean and Coutinho into that mix, and they're a must-watch team.
There's a great headline in the Daily Express in their transfer rumour mill. Antonio Conte personally refused the chance to sign Barcelona star Philippe Coutinho for Spurs. He went out of his way to say no Coutinho, no thank you.
Yeah,
we don't want that for our ball club.
Yeah, Conte's got a bit of a job in his hands. I mean, like I think he probably knows a little bit more after yesterday about who he wants to get rid of as opposed to who he wants to sign. I mean, the Tottenham fans clearly aren't overly enamoured with Tanguy and Ndombele. Essentially got booed off the pitch yesterday. I'm not sure what Harry Kane actually said to him when he's going off, but Ndombele, while 1-0 down, was walking very slowly towards the touchline. I think Harry Kane was like, hurry up, like, run, man, run, we're losing here. Whereas Dele Alli had the sense to just go for the nearest touchline and just get off the pitch ASAP.
I had forgotten, but Ndombele was their record signing, so they've spent money really wisely at Spurs in recent years. Very quickly, we run you through the newspapers here. It's 8:30 this morning on OTBAM. OTBAM brought to you live every morning with Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette. Put your best face forward with their new and improved razors. Leanne Kiernan hat-trick for Liverpool. You can watch that on otbsports.com. Toga Bugge, Maggie Farrelly on referee abuse. Leicester's trip to Everton postponed following meeting in Premier League. Don't F it up. Anne-Marie Kennedy remembers working under Jim Gavin. And Saturday's Cup Magic, the third round of the FA Cup. All of that available for you to peruse this Monday morning here. Front page of the Irish Independent Sports section, gunning for more club glory. This is the Ballygunner story we've been talking about a little bit earlier. Van Graan tries to block out the noise. Shefflin's Galway hit the heavy ground running. He did also confirm that he doesn't think Joe Canning is coming back. On the back page, the Irish not motocross, it's cyclocross. Is that what it's called? Cyclocross. Yeah. So it's the hybrid bike. It's not mountain biking. And there's kind of an element of the racer bike to it. But that's David Gillick, who just can't get enough, carrying his bike and looking like he was to the manner born. Is it too late for him to have a career, a third life?
Absolutely, absolutely not. Of course, the first and second lives being GEA and athletics.
Yeah. Well, yeah. That'll be pretty impressive. Impressive character. The Telegraph Sport. Gunners crash out. Super sub Graben strikes late winner. Headline writer's dream, that one, you'd think, wouldn't it? But no one's gone for it. Smashing Graben.
That was, you see, it was almost too obvious. I think that someone like the Telegraph kind of said, turn their noses up at something that a mere Twitter user could come up with. But because it was the first thing that I thought of last night.
All of the rest of them did it too. All of the rest of the papers turned it down. Take the open goals. Okay, right. Gunned down is the headline. Arteta's pub team not the real deal for Roy. Do you get the real thing? Because Real Madrid, they look like Real Madrid. Mikel Arteta was in pain and hurting after Arsenal were embarrassed by Championship side Nottingham Forest yesterday. Is it really? It doesn't matter.
I get the feeling that Arteta is playing that up just a little bit. To be honest.
Totally.
Like,
it suits him perfectly, right?
This flies in the face of what I said earlier on about the magic of the cup and all that. Like, I guess my point is that the cup isn't as terrible as everybody says, but it still is in a completely different stratosphere to the importance that Arsenal would have on potentially qualifying for the Champions League next season. And I think that's particularly true of Arsenal. I think they're at the sharp end of this dilemma between what do you go for, the FA Cup or a Champions League qualification. In reality, it probably wouldn't make that much of a difference if they qualify for the next round. And a couple of extra games here and there, it's not going to be the difference between them qualifying for the Champions League or not. So it's not a decision. What's more worrying is just the attitude from the players yesterday and how abject they were in attack once again with a pretty good team. It's not like they rested everybody yesterday. And after they stumbled to that defeat against Manchester City on New Year's Day, I thought to myself, if this was the Arsenal of old with a very soft underbelly, that's the sort of result that could completely cripple their season, where their confidence would be shot, they will shut down, and all of a sudden they'll start losing games despite being excellent against Manchester City.
You've PTSD from this. That's what this is, and this is okay. All right, I'm buying now that it's an issue.
Well, we won't know for a while, but it was definitely something that struck me after that City game. I was like, right, that performance would have been good enough to beat almost everybody in the Premier League. It would have been good enough to beat the 17 other teams that aren't Manchester City or Liverpool, I would say, that performance they put in on New Year's Day. But at the same time, that kind of counts for nothing if you can't back it up the next day. And just, it felt a little bit, it felt a little bit sore. All the reaction from the Arsenal players and management, I felt that there was quite a bit of victimhood going on about the refereeing decisions on New Year's Day and kind of pointing fingers at everybody else rather than themselves, to be quite honest, because it was fairly self-inflicted, let's face it. So we'll see over the next little while, but I think yesterday was a bit of a red flag.
The front page of the Irish Times, Australian lawyers hit back at Djokovic. Obviously that's all been resolved. Novak Djokovic will be free to play in the Australian Open, and amazing picture there. Horse and jockey part company at the last. Sean O'Keefe, the jockey, and the horse Poseidon come crashing down at the last during the Dan and Joan Moore handicap chase at Fairyhouse yesterday. Arsenal stunned by Forest Late Show. Mary Hannigan saying that we can roll our eyes all we like, but Djokovic is entitled to his beliefs. Nobody's saying he's not entitled to his beliefs. Like, no one's saying that he's not entitled to his beliefs, just saying his beliefs are stupid. There's a difference. You can have your crazy, stupid ideas, and I'm free to call you crazy and stupid.
Of course, I do think though
that with the team of the Naughties, for example, it happens all the time.
I do think that, like, Mary Hannigan touched on a very true point though, that say if you were of the traditionalist tennis mindset where there are two GOATs and they are Roger Federer and Rafa Nadal, you would have been absolutely salivating at the thought of this story last week. You will this week be doing a novena hoping that the immigration minister does indeed step in and ban Novak Djokovic for 3 years from the Australian Open, because people can't face up to the fact that Novak Djokovic is as good or probably actually better and will probably go down as the GOAT, but as good as Nadal and Federer. Like leaving aside all the very reasonable arguments why Novak Djokovic is not a good person potentially.
This is interesting,
I do think that there is a snobbery.
What's the greatest Premier League team of all time? Right? Who's the greatest Premier League team of all time?
Manchester United when they won the treble.
I mean, that's your view, right?
Yeah.
But statistically, that team actually ended up not being the greatest Premier League team of all time because they needed to go on that ridiculous run at the end of the season to win it, and they just won it by a few points. I think apparently one of the Chelsea teams under Mourinho, or the City team that did the 100 points, right? Does anybody who is not a Chelsea fan or a City fan love those teams? But by the stats, by the goals scored and points harvested per game, per second, per minute, you can make the case that they're the greatest team of all time. But who cares? Who cares? The rivalry between Nadal and Federer was one of the great things in world sports history.
Yeah.
They produced such great epic games. People love those players because of the style and the panache and the brio that they have. People don't fall in love with the mechanical style of Djokovic. So it's no big deal. If he finishes with 30 Grand Slam wins, fair play, Novak, good man, well done yourself. Love your veganism. It's an amazing turnaround that you managed to precipitate in your career when you went to veganism. All that the damage that you've done with vaccinations and whatever as a human being, fair enough. That's who you are. You have revealed yourself. Good man yourself. But with the other two, it's like, you know, what they brought was heavyweights. They brought Foreman versus Ali. What Man United brought, you went to Man United first.
Oh, no.
Man United is not Djokovic in this.
Hold on a minute. I'll let you finish your point.
The Djokovic in this is either Man City or Chelsea, the mechanical Chelsea team, who were, very, very, very good, like unbelievably good, maybe the best, and maybe they would crush that Man United team. But that Man United team, for the neutrals, were like, wow, look at what they're doing.
The counterpoint is that I didn't pick Manchester United for the romance. I picked Manchester United because of the cold, hard numbers. Jose Mourinho with his three. They won 3 trophies that year, 3 important trophies. They managed to win the Champions League as well as the Premier League and the FA Cup. Manchester City and Chelsea did not manage to do that. If I picked the invincible Arsenal team, I would not be sitting here basing it on the poetic notion of going a season unbeaten. I'd be like 49 games unbeaten. That is a cold, hard fact. And no matter when you look at any of these conversations, you have to base it on cold, hard facts to some point. And the fact that Novak Djokovic will, I think it's pretty inevitable, but unless the US bans him for 3 years and the UK does and France does as well, unless another political storm blows up, he will become the most successful Grand Slam-wise male tennis player of all time. And for me, that's where the conversation
ends.
But it gets most decided on that point. Of course, if he played in an era where there was no Roger Federer or Rafa Nadal, of course that would colour it. But I think we forget he did play in an era where Roger Federer and Rafa Nadal existed, and that is why there is, even before Novak Djokovic, before COVID ever existed, there was already this sort of,
even if you can make the case that he's the best, who cares? So I'm making the point that you're saying cold hard numbers. The points total that Manchester United had was 78, 79 points,
and then they won 2 other trophies,
79 points that season. Chelsea had 95 points. It's like, who cares? Well done, Chelsea. You get super bonus points for winning by extra. Good man, Novak. You won your 14 Australian Opens. Good man. Congratulations. Well done. Awesome stuff. But I don't love you. He's never going to have the love.
Yeah, but that's not but that's my point, is that there is this sort of love for the other two.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I think
the world go round.
I think you very quickly changed the.
That was my whole point.
You shifted the goalposts here a little bit.
My whole point is it's not about the numbers.
You started to dig yourself into a GOAT conversation there.
No, but the whole point about the GOAT conversation is that it's completely subjective, right? Except that you can have the cold hard numbers, but no one loves them. No one loves those teams. What Man United did, or whoever, even if it was the Invincibles, what those teams had was something that was different to the mechanical.
Sure, but I think Djokovic is on the precipice of actually changing it from something that isn't subjective into something that is beyond all debate. Granted, it'll take a few more years for that to happen.
Grand.
I don't think to get to 25.
Grand,
who's going to back against Djokovic getting to 25 if he's allowed to play this month, for example?
Well, no one's going to back against him. He's a truly unbelievable athlete. Right. It is 8:40 this morning. OTBAM is brought to you by Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette. Put your best face forward with their new and improved razors. Colin Mullaney is here to inject some sensible... I was going to say sensitivity to you, but that's not... We don't want sensitivity. We want sensible.
Oh, my microphone is gone.
There you go. Sorry, Mike.
There we go. Yeah, I just caught the end of that debate, but...
Go on.
Numbers matter? I think they do. How else do you judge?
Love. Emotion. Sport isn't just cold, hard analysis. Look at you, data geeks.
But see, emotion, hatred and disgust is also an emotion. And Novak Djokovic has managed to evoke negative emotions from you. He's managed to make you feel things as well. Just because it's not a positive emotion, just because you don't feel warm and fuzzy when you watch Novak Djokovic, does not mean it's an emotion.
Who are the greatest Premier League team of all time? Do we do that on the basis of the amount of points that they won in a season, and so therefore it is without question that Manchester City team?
No, I think that you have to... Nothing exists in a vacuum. Nothing exists in a vacuum. The greatest Premier League of all time is a team who managed to win the Premier League and also managed to win the Champions League and the FA Cup in the same season.
Okay.
For me.
Your choice, yeah. What's going on, Carl?
Well, we'll start with the tennis news that the world tennis number one Novak Djokovic has successfully appealed against a decision to cancel his visa ahead of the Australian Open. Djokovic understood he'd been granted a medical exemption to compete in Melbourne, of course. Those believed he's not vaccinated against COVID-19. Lawyers for the Australian government argued Djokovic's recent COVID infection doesn't exempt him from the country's strict vaccination requirements. The judges now ruled that the decision by Bordeaux officials to revoke the visa was unreasonable. Now, the Australian Immigration Minister could still step in to cancel his visa again, but as of now, Djokovic will be able to defend his Australian Open title next week. There's reports this morning of a pretty significant police presence at the office of Djokovic's lawyers as well in Melbourne. So that story's still developing this morning, and there could well be more news to it later.
He confirmed he wasn't vaccinated and that he'd had COVID twice. The Guardian have the transcript available this morning to you, so he's obviously been happy enough not to get vaccinated and wander around smearing his antibodies.
It's
wherever
just,
he meets.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they revoke, they cancel the visa again. I think he's banned from the country for 3 years.
That'll be mad.
It will be mad.
There's no chance of them doing that, really, is there? Do we think there is?
It has entered a pretty high stakes game of chicken here at this point, hasn't it? Where they want to make a political point.
Exactly, and the political point is important. I think the government is low on support in Australia, and this is really... I suppose a lot of the people in Australia are interested in this. There's an election coming up.
Somewhere a pollster is earning a lot of money right now. And a lot is riding on that.
That would be a huge decision, but I think they have a certain window in which they can do that, so it'll probably develop more later on today. Other matters on the sporting front. Steven Gerrard takes his Aston Villa side to Old Trafford tonight in the FA Cup. They take on Manchester United. That's a 7:55 kickoff. Meanwhile, the Arsenal boss Mikel Arteta says his players lacked hunger and drive as they crashed out of the competition yesterday. Lost 1-0, of course, to Nottingham Forest. Lewis Grabban scoring the goal there at the City Ground. As for the FA Cup fourth round ties, well, one of the standout ones, Kidderminster Harriers, playing in the sixth tier of English football. They've been drawn against Premier League side West Ham. Tottenham will take on Brighton. Liverpool set to go up against Cardiff City, and all of those fourth round fixtures scheduled to take place in early February. The Africa Cup of Nations continuing. Interest in it last night from a League of Ireland point of view. Roberta Lopez featured for Cape Verde. They got their campaign off to a winning start. They beat Ethiopia by 1-0 in Group A, and they're set to take on Burkina Faso on Thursday. Liverpool manager Jurgen Klopp says a number of false positive tests was the reason behind the recent COVID outbreak at the club. Last week's League Cup semi-final with Arsenal was postponed, while a youthful side beat Shrewsbury 4-1 in the FA Cup third round yesterday. And speaking after that game, Klopp revealed that fullback Trent Alexander-Arnold is the only confirmed coronavirus case in his squad. A busy weekend of Gaelic Games action again. We'll start with the club scene. Ballygunner are the Munster club hurling champions for the third time. They beat Limerick's Kilmallock by 320 to 112 in the decider at Páirc Uí Chaoimh yesterday. They'll now play Schlockneil in the last four in the All-Ireland series in a couple of weeks' time. While in football, historic day for the Roscommon club Páirc Pierces. They claimed the Connacht title for the first time in a win over Knockmore of Mayo in Ballina. Paul Carey scoring 8 points there in a 113 to 111 win for the Páirc Pierces club managed by Pat Flanagan. Then on the county front, Henry Shefflin got his reign as Galway hurling manager off to a winning start. The Kilkenny legend watched his side beat Offaly by 219 to 19 points in the Walsh Cup. Elsewhere wins yesterday in that competition for Dublin and Wexford. Dublin beat Antrim while Wexford overcame the challenge of Laois. Monaghan's footballers secured a win in the Dr. McKenna Cup, 16 points to 11 winners over Fermanagh. Tipperary beat Limerick 112 to 14 points in the McGrath Cup in Munster football. In golf last night, a final round of 6 under par 67 helped Seamus Power to a tie for 15th at the Tournament of Champions in Hawaii last night on the PGA Tour. He finished at 20 under par. The scoring was remarkable this week, and Cameron Smith set a new record on 34 under par. That's the lowest score ever recorded on tour, 3 shots better than Ernie Els' previous record, which was set all the way back in 2003. And the snooker continuing today at the Masters tournament taking place at the Alexandra Palace. World number 6 John Higgins goes up against Zhao Xingtong from 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and then this evening Sean Murphy takes on Barry Hawkins.
Were you watching any of the Tournament of Champions? It sounds a bit like pitch and putt.
Yeah, it's a little bit carefree, that tournament, in that it gets the season underway, but the scoring is just ridiculous. I mean, you wouldn't manage that on Tiger Woods' PGA Tour, never mind in real life. I mean, Seamus Power's total of 20 under was pretty decent as well. But it is the way that the game is going. I think that they're going to have to change something in terms of technology or something like that.
He finishes 20 under and 14 shots back.
Yeah, it's just crazy. But yeah, it is a little bit more relaxed environment. I don't know if that helped the players score a little bit better. Maybe the tour makes the course a little bit more playable as well to ease them into the year. But yeah, crazy scoring. But the year is up and running again, so lots to look forward to.
All right, Carl, good stuff. More from Carl across the day on OTBsports.com. It is 8:46 this morning. A reminder, OTBAM is brought to you by Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette. Put your best face forward with their new and improved razors. I'm delighted to say Mike Carlson is with us this morning. We're going to talk some NFL because now we know the details of exactly who is still alive and who is dead when it comes to the season. Mike, good morning to you. How are you?
Good morning. I haven't got to my new shaving kit this morning, but it went on a long time last night.
Yeah, right down to
it was worth it.
Right down to the final second. So, there was a weird sequence of results, which meant that if the Las Vegas Raiders and the Los Angeles Chargers, I'm still getting the names of those two teams wrong. If the Raiders and the Chargers decided to, they could have just kneeled out the game and both would have gone through. Is that correct?
That's correct. In fact, it was that way from the start. It had the implications. The beneficiaries were Pittsburgh, who also won in overtime, and because their record with one tie, 9-7-1, was better than the 9-8 teams, they get in as the final seed in the AFC. But had the Raiders and Chargers decided to just let it end in a tie, rather than my man Daniel Carlson kicking a 47-yard field goal to win it, they both would have been in. Pittsburgh would have been out. Cincinnati would be playing New England instead of Las Vegas, which I think would be a much more interesting matchup. But it's not soccer. We don't make they don't make deals in the fourth quarter to do that. I kept thinking about Germany and Austria back in Gijón in Spain, and the first year I was in Britain, Coventry and Bristol did a similar thing at the end of a game when they realized if they drew, they both would go through.
So we did it. Ireland did it with Holland in the World Cup in 1990. Ruud Gullit and Mick McCarthy kind of essentially shaking hands, and not in any way subtly, Mike, at all. There was so the last 20 minutes of the game was basically the keepers kicking it to each other.
Yeah, and it's what I guess you would say it's the smart thing to do when results are more important than process, basically.
So why didn't they do the smart thing then? Why didn't they just kneel it out for the whole thing?
I mean, it's the nature of the game. I think is to play to win. I was laughing as I was listening in the earlier games to people loudly complaining that why are they doing this? If they lose, they'll get the number 1 pick in the draft. It's as if people look at the game as being Madden or fantasy football. The players aren't thinking about whether their team is going to be able to draft someone who might replace them next season. They're going to play to win. And as it turned out, the two worst teams in the league both won, the Jacksonville and Detroit. So that they stayed in their draft positions, and the Jags get the first pick and Detroit gets the second.
It is mad. I presume the players are all bonused to win as well. So every time they win, they get more money, and that's one of the things that prevents us.
Not necessarily. team bonuses are, I'm not even sure if they're legal under the contracts.
Okay. Right.
But there's no win bonus I'm sure in most players' contracts. And I'm thinking desperately as I'm sitting here with quarterbacks and stuff. But as far as I know, is that mostly they're on individual achievements, which I guess is, it puts the whole thing in a nutshell right there. That individual achievements over long-term team result.
Right. And just to explain to everybody, in this game that we're talking about, it's the final game of the slate of the season, of the regular season, and Vegas are 2 touchdowns up with about 4 minutes left to go, and somehow managed to choke and let the Chargers back into it through brilliant play by the Chargers to send the game to overtime. At which point, once it's gone to overtime, fair enough. Now they're both going through again, right?
Yeah, they're both through. They have to play the overtime, obviously. The Raiders come down in overtime and they stall and kick a field goal. So they're up by 3, but the Chargers then get the ball back. And they go down and stall and kick a field goal. And now you've got about 2.5 minutes left. And in fairness, if the Chargers were able to stop the running play, which they were unable to do for most of the game, they might well have wound up with a tie, but Josh Jacobs gets a couple of big runs that puts Vegas down into position, and then they get one pass play that sets them up to win the game. It was incredibly frustrating, I think, if you were a Chargers fan, because they could have easily won the game. Not easily, but they could have won the game in regulation had a few breaks gone their way. There was an incredibly bad call for an ineligible receiver downfield with an interior lineman on the other side of the field being flagged. And, of course, Brendan Staley, who's made a specialty of going for it on 4th down, early in the game, in the third quarter, when they're only down by 3, he goes on 4th down at his own 18-yard line and turns the ball over. And they hold Vegas again just to a field goal, but those 3 points could have been crucial, or were crucial actually, in the big picture of things. So it was a fascinating and frustrating and exciting game. And I'm not a big fan of the extra game in the season, the 17th game in the 18th week that was added this year. And I think what we've got, because they've also added one extra playoff team, is a fairly mediocre wild card round of games. But you couldn't argue with 3 crucial games all going to overtime. 3 games where somebody was playing for a spot in the playoffs, and San Francisco beating the Rams in Los Angeles, and Pittsburgh managing somehow to beat Baltimore. Like every Pittsburgh win this season, it's hard to believe they did it, but they got into the playoffs. The Niners got into the playoffs, and obviously Vegas goes into the playoffs, and the Chargers go home.
You say it's a mediocre wildcard round, and obviously part of that is because it's bloated compared to a couple of seasons ago, but is part of it because it is a mediocre NFL season anyway, and I mean, if you're judging the very top quality at the moment, I mean, from a neutral standpoint, it's been amazing the way it's been so exciting over the last couple of weeks that anybody could have qualified for the playoffs. But especially when you look at, say, the Titans getting a bye in the wildcard round, is the standard of the top teams at the moment just that little bit less than it was a couple of seasons ago?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. There's some external or extraneous factors involved, mainly COVID, which, week to week, a lot of teams never knew who was going to be playing for them. But there was I don't think there is an outstanding team this season based on their regular season play. Green Bay and Tampa, with 4 losses each in the NFC, might make a case, and they've got the great quarterbacks, and that helps. But Tampa, without all of the receivers they've lost, are not the team they were last year. And as you said, Tennessee, the biggest surprise, I think, of the season, because once Derrick Henry was injured and lost for the rest of the season, he may be back. They get the bye week, and so he may be back in 2 weeks to play in the playoffs. But Tennessee's not an outstanding team by any means, and the Chiefs, who are everybody's sort of preseason favorites to win the AFC, were very, very average for a good part of the season. They got their defense together toward the end of the year, but they're still kind of erratic offensively, and teams have discovered ways of stopping them. Nobody else stands out. You could put the rest of the teams into a big sack and pick out pick out two of them and then pick out another two, and there wouldn't be that much difference between them.
Yeah, maybe Buffalo, what Buffalo have done in every game they win by double-digit points, and the games they lose are obviously close games where they get beaten and they look horrible. So they're kind of a Jekyll and Hyde team.
Yeah, a lot of it depends on Josh Allen, and the games they've been winning in the second half of the season have been when Allen runs a lot. Which is the formula they were trying to get away from, because obviously you don't want your quarterback being your main ball carrier and risking injury. They're a very solid defensive team, although not necessarily spectacular. And my best bet of the week this week was to take the Jets, who were getting 16.5 points against Buffalo, and Buffalo staged a kind of fourth quarter comeback that they won the game by 17. So I was a bit disappointed in that. But, they are what we thought they were at the start of the season, a very well-balanced team who can play really good defense and have the advantage of home field, at least, for a week. It's a very tough place for most teams to play. And I'm not sure if it's a good or a bad thing that New England goes up to Buffalo next weekend to play, because, when New England played them in bad weather up in Buffalo, the Patriots dominated the game. And then Buffalo came down to New England a couple of weeks ago and dominated the Patriots. So this is kind of like a rubber match, which might be interesting but might fizzle out. It might have been more interesting to see the Chargers the Chargers or somebody go up there. The best thing in some ways about this part of the season is that weather is such a big factor. New England cannot win in Miami in December when they go down to the hot weather, and lots of teams cannot win in Buffalo in December when you go up and it's snowing. And the same applies to Green Bay. So, the most crucial thing I think for them is they're simply going to be at home in the playoffs, and at home they have a huge advantage at this point in the season.
Let's talk a little bit about the Rams and the 49ers. The Rams were blowing out the 49ers at halftime, 14 points up, and looked like Sean McVay was celebrating on the field with his players, which is apparently unusual and doesn't happen that much.
In the end zone, no less.
Yeah, bad form. But McVay had never lost a game where his team led at halftime up to this week. He's also 0-6 against Kyle Shanahan as a head coach. So that might tell you something, because he was once Kyle Shanahan's assistant. But, I thought the Niners just did a brilliant job. And the kind of shorthand version of this would be in the last quarter of the season, Matt Stafford has become very erratic in the fourth quarter of games. And the critics are going, oh, this is what he did in Detroit and all. But the reality is, halfway through the year, they lost Robert Woods. They were 7-1 at that point. They went 5-4 now the rest of the season, with Cooper Kupp stepping up and having just a tremendous year as the solo main threat for this team. But it showed, I think, that even though Kupp was making his plays, not having that real secondary threat, which is what Kupp was when Robert Woods was there, really hurt them. I think it hurt their offense overall. And when the chips were down, they went away from the run game, which is what they've been doing for the past couple of weeks, mostly with Sony Michel. And I think that hurt the Rams too. It doesn't really affect them too much. They wind up in the fourth seed, but they have to play Arizona next week, which ought to be, they've met twice already in the season. They know each other well, but that ought to be an interesting game, because the Cardinals are right now in a tailspin, and one of them has to right themselves at this point.
Okay, and do the 49ers have any chance of beating the Cowboys?
For the Niners, I mean, it is great if you're old enough to remember those great Dallas-San Francisco matchups, in the Steve Young kind of years, when Deion Sanders was bouncing back between the two teams. And I think they can. They're a frustratingly almost good defensive team, and that's going to be the most interesting part. Dallas, I keep saying, they're not as good as the sum of their parts. There's a lot of big names there. Oddly enough, Cedric Wilson, who's not a big name, has been playing great since he replaced Michael Gallup, who got hurt. the key to me is defensively. Dallas is a better defensive team than they've been in a couple of years. The addition of Micah Parsons has been a big part of that. So it's whether Dan Quinn, who's the coordinator, the former Falcons head coach, it can actually coordinate the defense, to play well enough to hold the Niners in check. And, I thought Jimmy G, for all of the criticism he gets, he played an incredibly strong game for the Niners. He really stood in against the rush. He made a couple of big plays when he was about to go flat on his back, and he deserves a lot of credit in that game.
Yeah, he needed to take them down the field with 1:40 left on the clock, and he managed to do it. He, I think, is playing for a new contract with a new team next season as well. And
probably, yes.
He probably made himself between 30 and 50 million over the lifetime of his contract last night.
Yeah. The only thing holding him back from any team that looks is probably his injury history, which is a kind of red flag. I guess the other thing you have to say about San Francisco is Deebo Samuel is just amazing. And, the last week of the season when everybody's watching the big games is a great time to make your case for all pro or new contracts. And Deebo certainly made a really strong case over the weekend. I think that's going to vault him into some kind of thing that they're trying to create a position for him as a running back stroke receiver. But I'd put him in as, certainly second team All-Pro as a receiver. He's just amazing.
Which of these wildcard games is going to be the most fun, Mike?
The most fun? Probably Cincinnati and the Raiders. Or Los Angeles and Arizona. That's where you have the chance of really big offensive explosions. Dallas, San Francisco might be the most evenly matched and interesting of the games. Buffalo and New England will be another one that's probably tightly matched. If the Patriots fall behind, the game's over. But if they don't, it could be, given the weather conditions, possibly what most of the audience would consider a boring kind of game, but actually a pretty good one. I think Tampa and Kansas City against the two Pennsylvania teams are probably going to be heavy favorites, and anything other than that would be a huge shock.
You mentioned the Patriots there. You went to college, I think, with Belichick. Did you manage to get anything out of him with regards to New Year's resolutions that reporter tried and struggled to get?
Wasn't that great? And what made it so great was that it was a horrible loss for them, and most of their losses this season have been horrible losses, which is maybe a sign of a young team or an old coach. I don't know which. But someone asked a question, Bill mumbled an answer, and someone else did, and then there was this sort of like 45 seconds of silence where nobody had any other questions, and so the reporter just popped up and said, "Well, it's not football, but I'm doing a piece on New Year's resolutions. Have you made it?" And Bill just, the look on his face, it was like the laser beams were coming out from his eyes. And in fairness, she asked it again the following week when moods were lighter, and Bill just said, "Well, that's personal, and I'm not going to share that." It's like I would have liked to see Joe Judge answering that question instead.
Sorry, we didn't mention Joe Judge. This is one of the most remarkable things.
That's why I dropped him in.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I don't know if everybody saw this, right? So the Giants, one of the worst teams in history at the moment. They're playing so bad, but they have the ball inside their own 10-yard line. It's third down, 3rd and 9, and they take a victory formation, QB sneak formation, to try and make 1 yard for 3rd and 9. Surely it's a sackable offence.
They actually did it twice, a second time in the game. Joe Judge's explanation, which you could have figured out, was they wanted room to punt. They wanted, they didn't want their punter backed up against the end line. But given the calls on 1st and 2nd down, Joe Judge had said, they're playing the Washington team football, or WTF as I call them, and WTF had a bench fight. A couple of players had got into a little fisticuffs the week before, and Joe Judge said, "Oh, they're clowns there." And Ron Rivera, the coach in Washington, got all upset about this, and so I mean, immediately the clown memes came up when Judge did that. 3 weeks ago, the Giants said his job was safe for reasons beyond any comprehension, and I would agree with you that, to me, that if I were the owner of the team, I would have walked out on the field and given him his pink slip right then and there. Gettleman, the general manager, is already supposedly out. They fired they've gone through coaches 2 years and out, 2 years and out, 2 years and out now for 3 coaches in a row. They didn't want to make this a habit, but the fact is they've been terrible for the last 5 seasons, 6 seasons, and they're not showing signs of turning it around. And you can say, well, Daniel Jones was injured, but if Daniel Jones is the answer to their problems, he hasn't shown it in the last 3 seasons. So, yeah, I would be surprised if John Mara, the owner there in New York, does fire Judge, but I certainly agree that would be the smart move.
Today's Black Monday, is it? Is today the day that all the coaches get fired? Or
yeah, and I actually think there won't be as much movement as you might expect. The league changed their tampering kind of rules so that 2 weeks ago teams could have fired coaches and then started interviewing, but that was an opportunity that went missing, which is good because coaches coaching other teams should not be bothered by this at that stage of the season. You've got a couple of interim coaches who obviously you think the teams are going to move on from, but if the Raiders actually were to make a playoff run, Rich Bisaccia, who took over in a very chaotic situation with John Gruden, might well have made a case for his being retained. Jacksonville obviously need a coach. Chicago is likely to fire Matt Nagy, and there might be one or two others. Minnesota might fire Mike Zimmer. That's an interesting one because he's been there a long time, but he's had two bad seasons in a row. And of course, there's a lot of talk about Seattle. Now, they won't fire Pete Carroll, but they might talk to him about stepping down. And in a sense, they were playing like it was his last game against Arizona, but that might be enough to convince him to come back for another season. I can't see them sacking Pete Carroll. He goes if he wants to go.
Okay, we'll watch that with bated breath because Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll won't be a couple next season no matter what happens, it feels like. Anyway, Mike, good stuff. Always great to have you with us. Thanks a million. Cheers.
Yeah, you too. Bye.
Mike Carlson giving us his thoughts there on the end of the regular season. Are you full Bills Mafia?
I will be now. I kind of want to get on I kind of feel like the Giants would be a good thing to get in on the ground level of right now. It's just so bad. It'll be fun. Joe Judge has immediately become a hero of mine after that. I was in an 11-minute rant last week where he says he's got players who used to play for him earning money elsewhere, calling him up every week saying, I want to come back and play for the Giants, which was, I think Bill Barnwell did a breakdown of exactly who it could be, and he distilled it down to one player who it definitely wasn't. I can't remember who it was. So, I mean, anybody who can bullshit their way to the very top, I mean, got a lot of time for them. So I'm a Joe Judge fan.
Yeah, you would enjoy trolling the Giants fans anyway.
I mean, I think the next season get in at ground level.
Rooney Mara, the actress, she's connected to the ownership somehow. She's a family member of the Mara dynasty.
Oh, they're the same Maras.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
There you go.
That is a nugget on a Monday morning.
9:08 this morning here on OTBAM. Brought to you by Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette. Put your best face forward with their new and improved razors. The NFL last night was brilliant entertainment for 10 hours. Storylines changing every 15 minutes as Powell 74. Conor Rowe says, late to the party here, but when considering the greatest snooker player, is it who has the best stats or is it Ronnie? Stats only tell part of the story. Conor, where were you when I needed you, buddy? But you're right.
That's different though, isn't it?
No! How is it different?
I mean, I guess you do have a period where Federer and Nadal are both out for various reasons, but Ronnie is different. Ronnie is different.
So
because of a prolonged period of not.
Who is Ronnie in the tennis world? Who's Ronnie?
It's hard to say. Like, Ronnie is kind of like all of them encapsulated. I think there's like a Djokovic and Federer kind of mould of personalities there, where it feels at times like the outlier, where the snooker world is here, they're all looking out at Ronnie and he's looking in on them and judging them. And it kind of feels like there's a Novak Djokovic element to that. But then there's also a Roger Federer element to it, where he's clearly the most naturally gifted of his generation and the most fun to watch. I think if you had to say who's the most fun of the big three to watch, Federer is, yeah. So I think Ronnie kind of encapsulates a bit of Djokovic and a bit of Federer in both.
There's not that much Djokovic in Ronnie. Like, you'd say the absence of Djokovic has prevented Ronnie from... Ronnie should have had like 12 titles. It should have been unimpeachable forever but he doesn't have the mechanical... There's a thing that Djokovic has, which is like he can blink away everything. Like you beat him in a point, you humiliate him in a point, blink, 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 it's gone. Next point, he just does what he's supposed to do again and again and again and again, and that's an incredible skill that has made him, he'll end up being close to a billionaire.
It's like another difference here, though, the fact that you're talking about the peak of men's tennis in the era of Federer and Nadal and then subsequently Djokovic, whereas you could definitely make a case that Ronnie O'Sullivan arrived well after the peak of snooker.
When Ronnie was 17, was he not up against Stephen Hendry? The end of the Stephen Hendry era? Would he not have played all those guys?
Yeah, well, I guess so. Like, maybe if you distill it into like great rivalries that Ronnie hasn't had. Like, who is if Ronnie is Federer, who is his Nadal?
It doesn't really matter, though. What
you said earlier on, it does. That the rivalry is the more all-important thing.
Well, but Ronnie doesn't need that. We can see in Ronnie the greatness and the genius, right? And the trouble. We see the trouble that he has in harnessing his genius, and that makes us love him even more. It comes back to love. This is all about love, Eoin.
Well, I mean,
it's my New Year's revolution, that the world is about love. That's what sport is about. And you, with your clammy stats and analysis, trying to distill it down to, the ball was in square one when the left back managed to kick it, and he kicked it 14 times.
That's actually a pretty good impression. How long is this New Year's resolution going to last? Like, tomorrow you're going to be giving out about something, and all the poison will be back in your heart again. But like, you talk about like the obstacles between Ronnie and his greatness, as if Novak Djokovic isn't about to get banned from a country for 3 years that hosts an actual major. Like, I mean, you talk about obstacles. There's a pretty big one.
Banned?
Being an anti-vaxxer.
For political reasons, it has nothing to do with anything he's ever done himself. He's repercussion free.
Being an anti-vaxxer is as big an obstacle as Ronnie O'Sullivan has had to contend with. Granted, it's a self-inflicted one, but still.
All right, we've got to take a quick break. Alan Quinlan standing by. We're going to talk to him about Johan van Graan and Ulster and the red card and everything else. If there's any questions you want to ask Alan, stick them on the YouTube channel and we'll get to them next.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
Keep up to date with the latest WSL action and the biggest interviews.
You'd be delighted, Karen, if you just had Katie doing full-on attack.
This is the best team I've seen in weeks. Get her up there.
Subscribe to the Koi Gig podcast stream on the OTB Sports app now.
With prices from only €289 for fully comprehensive car insurance, everyone's making the jump to getsetgo.ie. New business policies only. Prices subject to minimum premiums. T's and C's apply. MCL Insurance Services Limited Trading is getsetgo.ie is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
9:13 this morning here on OTB AM. Delighted to say Alan Quinlan is with us. Alan, good morning to you. How are you?
Morning, lads. How are you?
How important was it for Munster just to get a win, no matter what they needed to do to get the win against Ulster?
Yeah, I said it during the week, Gerrard. It was probably, they probably needed a performance. I think the win was the obvious thing they needed. They needed to see an improvement in the performance, and it wasn't perfect at times. There was issues and mistakes, but the urgency and the intensity of the players and the reaction was so much better. Everybody was kind of hoping for a reaction the week before against Connacht after the Cass game, even though they won that game. But I think it's really, really important that they got a result on Saturday night. And against all the odds, really, when Simon Zebo got sent off early and Ulster started really strongly. So I think the reaction is really good, and it'll do them the world of good going forward.
You must have been concerned 15 minutes in when Ulster kicked to the corner and were able to push over and already had a good strong maul up to that point, where you're thinking this looks fairly similar to what we saw last week.
Yeah, I wasn't surprised though. I think I was watching Ulster warm up and just the body language coming into the stadium. I think they sensed a bit of vulnerability, which is not rocket science. I think they certainly sensed an opportunity. They had two good, really brilliant away wins this season against Ulster and against Claremont in the Champions Cup. So I think they sensed an opportunity here and a bit of fragility, if you like. And they started very well. Their maul is strong and their forward pack was pretty strong starting that game. Both sides are missing a few players. There's no doubt about that. But the way they started, it was very aggressive. They were direct, a lot of one-out runners, and it was very attritional. And to be fair to both sides, at the end of it, there was big effort from both teams, and they put a lot of pressure on each other. But that start certainly, quietened the crowd a little bit, and you just had the sense that this could be tricky, and a few things are going wrong for Munster here. And but the reaction was really good, I think.
The Munster game plan has obviously come in for criticism at various times, and it wasn't a night that was conducive to great expansive play, but it was interesting that Mike Haley does eventually get his try, because the ball does eventually get passed out wide to him, and the mirror image of that in the first half was Mike Haley screaming for the ball out wide and not getting the ball in his hands. So do the players have to take some blame at times when it comes to the style of play, not making the decisions to go wide when they're bearing down on the Ulster goal, or do you think that's more of a directive from the coaching box?
I think the players, of course, have to take responsibility and have to take some of the flack. And I suppose from the previous week, Johan van Gran and his coaching staff, Stephen Larkham, got a lot of flack based on what we'd seen, particularly in the Connacht game. But maybe the performance against Cass was a bit flat as well. There's a bit of mitigation there. They haven't played in a long time, and that mitigation is still probably there. And it's the same for a lot of teams now, having played for a while, but particularly with Munster, with what happened in South Africa and a long layoff. Some players haven't played in a long time. So you talk about leadership and decision making out in the field. You get a plan off your coaching team, and you practice it and you work on it. And there's times where there's 2-on-1s where you should give the pass, or you should keep the ball alive. And those moments, yes, players have to take responsibility for that. And there is a game plan, and the game plan probably didn't enable the players and allow them to attack more. I think the mistake that was made going to Galway was to try and play in the opposition half at all costs, not take risks and try and grind out a result, which backfired, and it frustrated people. And Eoin hasn't got a lot of criticism since he's come here, and I think this is last week was probably the worst week, and he was speaking about outside noise. You got to block it off. That's fine. Block out the outside noise from me, from Donald Lennon, from Keith Wood, from other people, ex-internationals or people who played with Munster, but it's impossible to block out all the noise from the fans. They're saying the same thing, and it's very easy to track that now on social media and the reaction. And I think that game frustrated a lot of people last week. Not losing to Connacht. Connacht are a side now that they kind of expect to win at home. They're very capable of beating anyone, even on the road. And Andy Friend has done a really good job there. But the noise that Eoin is talking about is just, he hasn't had a lot of that, and it's based on what we saw against Connacht. And I was a little bit disappointed that he even addressed that more. None of us want to criticise Munster, want to be in that position, but there was a bit of a trend starting in this period that was a negative one, and we all believe that the players are much better, and maybe the coaches are much better than that. And I think we saw a little bit of evidence on Saturday night, particularly if you look at the last try that Alex Candelan scores. Gavin Coombs goes up the middle of the field and an incredible offload with the right hand out to Josh Wycherley. Keeps the ball alive. Jack O'Donoghue makes a brilliant break and they execute and they score the try. The pick and goes before half time, similar stuff to maybe Connacht. But this time they looked like they could possibly score. They just looked very lethargic and lacking energy in Galway. But, when Mike Haley scores the try, they kick into the corner. Treadwell got sin-binned and they showed a little bit of a ruthless edge with more clarity in the attack. And when Craig Casey gets the ball, he's bossing fellas out of the way. And there's one thing in his mind this time is, I'm going to look for the pass. We're going to move this. And, credit to them because they've learned from their mistakes. And, if you're picking and going close to the line now, with the new law, if you get held up over the line, it's a dropout. You lose the ball. So I think that was, there was things in the game that we saw that were better. And going back to your question on, of course, players have to take responsibility because they can make decisions on the run out in the field. But the plan and the structure has to be encouraged more. There's no problem being direct and tight and playing to Munster strengths. But when there's space to exploit, they have to do that.
It feels to me like every single game over the next couple of weeks, until they find some rhythm and until they book a place in the knockout stages, is actually a referendum, and it is kind of the season on the line, because it could be a lost season. We could have a lame duck coaching ticket. Now, the fact that Roundtree's staying, I think, is actually really important, because it means that there's a voice there that's going to be there next year that everybody knows, particularly the forwards have to impress him, and there's a possibility he might get the main gig, so that keeps everybody at least on their toes until an announcement is made about who is getting the main gig. But very difficult for him just to be the one voice there that everybody knows. I need to prove to you next season. And I know professionalism kicks in, and I know that they have a contract and they have a job to do and all that kind of stuff, but human beings are human beings, and they're looking at Van Graan and go, well, you're out the door, You're like you don't have that loyalty to us that you're asking for us to put our bodies on the line to implement your game plan. So it's a really weird situation. But there is also a scenario in which they can join together, build on that identity that you're talking about in the second half, and kick on from here.
Yeah, Gerrard, I don't buy into this. Of course it can happen when a coach announces they're leaving. Of course. And we debated this over Joe Schmidt when he announced he was leaving. Did it affect the World Cup with Ireland? Can it affect, we've seen it in Premiership soccer. Of course it can happen, but it shouldn't happen. If you have enough leadership in the group, it can happen with some individuals. If they feel that they weren't getting a chance, of course they can have been a negative kind of presence can become positive. It can work both ways. Guys who, we're frustrated with coaches, and not every player will love a coach every time in any sport. That's just the reality. It should be player driven, and I don't buy into the scenario that it should be allowed to happen, that players drop their standards a little bit and the coaches are going. I think, in fact, with this group, it should enhance them more to maybe be a little bit freer in what they're trying to do and express themselves more and show their quality. They're getting well paid. They're well paid professionals. That danger is there. I think Roundtree being involved, you make a very valid point. And I think that little bit of continuity there. And it's more so knowing the players, when you have new coaches, whoever comes in, whether Graham Roundtree could take over and they could fill with some assistant coaches, which is a real possibility. And I don't think it'd be the worst thing in the world. I think Graham Roundtree is well capable of being the head coach. Your players, their capabilities, their characters, their faults, their weaknesses, and their strengths, of course. So, look, it is what it is. And professional sport, with Eoin leaving and Stephen Larkin leaving, that's just reality. It's not ideal, but they've got a fair bit of backing. But they have to listen. Forget about listening to us if they don't want, like I said. But, the fans go support the team, and they just want the players to... There's not an expectation that Munster win the URC or the Champions Cup, but people hope they're in the fight, and at least, you know, they're expressing themselves a little bit better and attacking a little bit more. And that attack, and I'll say it again, I've said it a few times, is not about going from winger to winger to winger. It's about just tempo, better shape when you get into multi-phase, and actually holding on to the ball for a period of time. You've got to, you know, react to the personnel you have on the field and try and play to their strengths. So was it as bad as maybe the perception out there was last week? Probably not. They haven't fixed everything, but no. I think it was better. I think the reaction was just much better. And even if Munster lost the game on Saturday night, of course there'd have been frustration.
Can I bring up one last thing?
Possibly should have won it.
Yeah. Can I bring up one last thing? Victor Matfield was speaking on South African TV, South African Supersport television. He said, I spoke to Johan van Graan, and he said it was so frustrating at Munster as all the good players go to Leinster. With friends like that, who needs enemies?
I think that was misconstrued, definitely, because I couldn't believe Johan would say something like that, because it makes no sense, does it? The good players go to Leinster. Where has that happened? I think it's the other way around, that players have come down from Munster and from Leinster to all of the other provinces. So
however Matfield mangled it, whatever Van Graan is saying to him doesn't sound great either way. Whatever, you know, because everyone's got to fill in the blanks, right? Matfield definitely had a conversation with Van Graan. I think we all accept that. Matfield then feels confident enough to go on telly saying he's frustrated because, and I don't know what he could have been talking about, but I don't know what Van Graan said to give Matfield an impression that whatever's happening here, Van Graan's the wrong man at the wrong time for this gig now. Like, we can see that, I think.
Well, look, nothing's going to happen. I think he's got to try and finish out the season. I don't think you'll have a situation where Johan van Graan goes or is asked to go earlier than he should, and then the contract expires. I think it's unfair on Johan to kind of start saying, well, he's saying something to Victor Matfield. That's completely skewed what he said. I'm sure he has frustrations with certain things in the organisation. And is
he
everything
should just say it though, shouldn't he?
No.
Shouldn't he say it?
Yeah,
shouldn't he instead of like fighting with Murray Kinsella, just tell everybody what you actually think? Because he's never really told everybody what he thinks about the job. It's always been like very guarded, and maybe that's the right way to do things. I don't know. Maybe
no, it's not. And you know, you're referring to the interview with Murray Kinsella where he was quite spiky, and we would all love to see Johan just say in a way that it wasn't good enough and that we need to be better.
Yeah,
I think that's what he just needs to say. And what can you say with a microphone back to a guy then? Just open a little bit. It's not about like having a closed shop all week and a normal training week. How could it be a normal training week? There has to be some sort of edge and spark there, and I'm sure there was. And they're trying to do their best. Like, that's the reality. But there's a frustration that the best is not being got out of these people. And maybe the coaches did look at themselves during the week and look at the structure and it's not a complete disaster because they've only lost 2 games.
No, it's not a disaster.
You know what I mean?
The standards are high.
But I think
expectations are high, and it's not a disaster. It's a great team. Like that's
and they've been unlucky with some of the injuries. You know, Carberry's out, Snyman.
Yeah,
it's a really good that's going to be a factor going forward. But just the reality, in simple terms, just to finish on it, we want to see these guys express themselves a little bit more.
Yeah.
And I think I saw a glimpse of that Saturday night. So well done. You know what I mean? It's
build on it now.
It's a busy couple of weeks. Move on and Johan, just come out and say we're not happy with the performance. That's all people want.
Exactly.
And we're going to do everything in our power to fix it.
Alan, good stuff.
I think the fans deserve that. I don't deserve that. Keith Wood, maybe Donald Lenihan, but just tell the fans that.
I think that's a fair point. Good one for us to finish on. Alan, good stuff. Thanks a million. Cheers.
Cheers, lads. Thanks.
Alan Quinlan there. Calling on Johan van Graan just to be a bit more forthcoming with how they actually feel. Like, there's definitely whatever you say nothing attitude in a lot of sports. We know that, like, but it hasn't worked. It hasn't helped them to win games, has it?
It hasn't happened to win trophies anyway. Like I mean, it was interesting before the Bath thing was confirmed and it was just speculation. He did get asked about it in a press conference, and he was like, "I'll never allow these things to be played out through the media. I won't be responding to speculation." And despite the fact that it's now being confirmed and it's no longer speculation, he has still refused to actually go on the record properly about this and actually be a little bit transparent about it. And maybe when he does these interviews, he feels that he's talking to the reporter and the reporter alone. But actually, he's talking to a pretty sizable audience out there. It's a huge amount of people who couldn't go to Thomond Park because of crowd restrictions on Saturday who are watching that and who are also getting that curt response from Van Gran.
All right, let's go to the breaking story that Novak Djokovic... let's find out exactly what the very latest is. I'm delighted that Jack Anderson is with us, Professor and Director of Sports Law at the University of Melbourne. Jack, good morning to you. Good evening to you. How are you?
Yeah, good. Yeah, good. Still very warm here today. Yeah, still 27 degrees at 8:30 at night. So all good.
Okay, right. And how do you cope with that heat as a matter of interest?
Yeah, not good. Not good. But look, let's discuss.
So the news overnight was that Novak Djokovic had won his court case and was going to be immediately released. What were the specifics of that, Jack? Because that was the flash that came across the wires. So what was the reasoned decision, or maybe reasoned decision is too much asked for at this point, but what was the initial findings of the court?
Yeah, so it's been a long day here in terms of the hearing itself. The hearing was streamed live, but because of the interest in it, I think the stream crashed a few times, etc. So it took the whole day. So we all thought with this that it would all come down to the medical exemption. So that essentially Novak Djokovic would say, I got a medical exemption on the grounds that I had COVID twice before, including in December. I got a medical exemption that has been certified by Tennis Australia, that has been certified by the local government. I applied for a visa, I got a visa, and now suddenly here I am at Melbourne Airport in the early hours of the morning, and you're saying no. And we all thought it would be about this medical exemption. But actually, from what we can gather, the judge focused on a very narrow kind of procedural point, which is this all took place at the early hours of the morning in Melbourne Airport. And it's Djokovic, and there's a really fascinating transcript, Djokovic with the immigration officer. And Djokovic clearly confused. He's on his own. He says, what more can I do? At least give me time to get in contact with some of my people, some lawyers. And remember, it's early in the morning, so give me time. And eventually, it seems that the immigration authorities at about 5:30 in the morning said, we'll give you 3 hours until 8:30. And after that, then it's likely we're going to cancel your visa unless you can supply some other information. But within 45 minutes, they're back to him and saying, we're canceling your visa. Your lawyers can't do anything for you anyway until we make a decision. And the judge says, well, you promised him 3 hours. He could have done something within those 3 hours, and you didn't give it to him. That's procedurally unfair. I think the visa cancellation was unfair and unlawful. And immediately the government authorities go, okay, we concede, and therefore he's free. Now, the twist in the tail is, and it's a developing story, is that it now, and Australian immigration law is quite complex, but it now goes to another federal minister, immigration minister, who has a total discretion and can, if you like, re-cancel the visa and deport Djokovic. Wow. And within the next hour, we're going to hear whether that's going to be done.
Right. Wow, so everybody's sitting around with bated breath. What do you think, like, what would go into that decision? Is it purely political? Is it based on...
Look, yeah, there is a legal basis for it under the Migration Act, which is, and presumably with Djokovic, it would be the public health argument that he is a danger to public health by not being vaccinated. It's overtly political at this stage. The minister in question has said previously that players should be vaccinated. The Prime Minister today, as the case was ongoing, was saying the same thing. The only thing is to say that Djokovic is a danger to public health is a big statement. You mightn't like that he's not vaccinated. He has received a medical exemption. is that enough? So it's going to be really, really interesting. But in some ways, this whole thing has been quite political from the beginning. Whatever you think about Djokovic's stance, it's been quite political in the sense that he got the medical exemption, he got a visa, he arrived, he announced it on Instagram. There was a public backlash here against the government, and suddenly when he arrived in Melbourne, they were saying no. So it's gone beyond the sport. It's always gone beyond that. It's even gone beyond law, and now it's a political decision. There's quite an amount of tension coming all the way to Australia from Serbia, and it's interesting. I think.
You can feel them beaming in.
With Nigel Farage up in Belgrade as well at the moment.
At present, we think Djokovic is in the Central Business District with his lawyers. There are fans gathering outside the lawyers. I think in the lawyers' car park as we speak. So it's been extraordinary. You know, I said earlier that this thing was streamed. The federal court streamed it, but it crashed almost straight away. There were millions trying to log on, mainly from Serbia. So it's been extraordinary.
I made the point earlier, and maybe I'm completely misreading the politics of the scenario, but the fact that the court ruled in favour of Djokovic means that the government can say, we tried to stop this man coming in, but the courts have overruled it. This extra kink in the process now, where the minister has to finally decide, can he just lean on the court and say, look, the court have said that our procedures were wrong, we're going to fix those procedures for next time and make sure this doesn't happen again, but in fairness we have to let him in. And that would actually be a massive win for the tennis tournament and for the benefit of having the best player in the world chase the record that he's chasing and all the attention. I'm wondering, is there a winner? Everybody's a winner here in some scenario where they've been seen to be hard, they've done their best, it hasn't worked out, Djokovic gets to play, and Tennis Australia is delighted.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm absolutely sure that the CEO of Tennis Australia is quite pleased at the minute, because he was coming under huge pressure on the grounds of the contradictory advice that it was claimed they were given to players about medical exemptions, etc. So, absolutely. But you've got to remember that this current federal government, there are no votes lost for them on being tough on the border issue. And Djokovic may have millions on social media, but not many of them vote for the Liberal Party in Australia. So, it was very telling that the Prime Minister held a press conference this morning. But still, when it comes down to it, the good thing about today is that, yes, ministers and the government have powers with regard to immigration, but that the courts can hold them to account. And even if the minister makes a decision in the next hour or so, it's likely that Djokovic will challenge again and make that minister come and give the reasons why they are making this decision. It's also, of course, it could be at that stage, to twist what you said, Djokovic just goes, I've made my point. The courts upheld what I said, but they're still after me. I'm just going to voluntarily leave and leave it at that. So we just don't know.
I wonder, could today mark a change in the mood in Australia as well, Jack, given, as you say there, the court has upheld the Novak Djokovic side of things, that I guess the way that the Djokovic camp have framed this is, he's being held captive in this hotel. That's a terrible place to be held captive, and that they've really tried to big up the whole victim complex around Novak Djokovic here. But then today he's got the decision from the court that if the Australian government do make this extraordinary decision to keep after him and essentially ban him from the country for 3 years, could the mood actually shift in Djokovic's favour substantially within Australia?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm not so sure about that, because so the background, I suppose, is, with the city of Melbourne itself, last year we were the most locked down city in the world, 250 days or something like that, and then we were told, get vaccinated and we won't go into lockdowns again. 90% plus of people have been vaccinated. 95 out of the top 100 seeds in the men's tennis are vaccinated. Most people would say to Djokovic, just get vaccinated. What was the problem? So I don't know whether or not it will turn sufficiently. Yes, the court has said he was dealt with unfairly. People acknowledge that, there was a mess made in the sense that a visa was granted and then last minute it seemed to be rejected for various reasons. We understand that. But generally, I'm not so sure about the public support going generally in Australia going behind Djokovic. There's something about Djokovic, even though he is a star of the Australian Open, 9 Australian Opens, etc. There's just something that's, beyond me as a sports lawyer to talk about, but there is something there. But don't underestimate the political element here of what the federal government is doing.
Yeah. Jack, always fascinating. We await with bated breath today to see what happens. Great to have you with us. Thanks a million.
All right, thanks guys.
Jack Anderson there giving us his thoughts, Professor and Director of Sports Law at the University of Melbourne. It's 9:39 this morning. OTBAM brought to you by Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette. Put your best face forward with their new and improved razors on OTB Sports Radio today at 1 o'clock. OTB Gold is Mike Carlson talking about his Rio exits. He's got a world title fight coming soon. State of the Union at 3 o'clock with Keith Wood. The split season club documentary OTB Gold from Sonia O'Sullivan at 6. Tomorrow morning we'll react to Manchester United against Aston Villa in the FA Cup and much more. Right now though, it's All-Ireland winning Meath footballers Vicky Wall, Shauna Ennis and Maura O'Shaughnessy, who joined Aisling O'Reilly and Maura Trasney-Kiali on yesterday's Nullig Naman special. Enjoy.
Paul Tadash to Off the Ball, or Nullig Naman special here on Off the Ball all afternoon. We really hope you've enjoyed it. There's more to come, and if you've missed anything and you were interested, go back on our socials. All the stuff should be there. 53106 if you want to get in touch with us, or find us on @OffTheBall on what feels like a million different types of social channels. But sure, that's the way the world has gone now. I know I sound like a 92-year-old as I say that. Now, one of the things we also know as well, that the Meath ladies won the All-Ireland Senior Championship. It feels like, geez, a long time ago now. Actually, it was only a few months ago, and we're still talking about them because the style they did it in, the way they did it, everything about them just exuded star power. So we're delighted to have not one, not two, but three with us here on the line. Maura O'Shaughnessy, Vicky Wall, August Shauna Ennis. You're here, and I have Aisling O'Reilly here with me as well, who's delighted to be looking at you, thinking about you, talking about you. How are you getting on?
Good, thanks. Yeah.
Well, where do we start? Are you still having the post All-Ireland, joy and feelings of warmth and fuzziness and achievement, or has that been parked now completely? Who'll answer that one for me? Vicky Wall, maybe I might go to you first. Has that been parked? Have you forgotten all about it?
Definitely haven't forgotten about it, but yeah, I think it has been parked, and we're definitely on the 2022 buzz now. I think you kind of can't spend too long dwelling on it. The league's going to be here fairly soon, and I'm still involved with my club myself, so that's going to be my priority for the last few weeks. But yeah, I think it's definitely been parked, and we're really looking forward to 2022 now.
I think my favourite story that I heard about all of this was, I read it, I think Gordon Manning wrote a piece in the Sun on Sunday, when you had your homecoming, when you couldn't have the cup at the homecoming, you brought actual Brendan Martin in. I mean, for me, I thought that was just brilliant. I mean, that's an ingeniousness, and to me that's kind of a metaphor of how you guys operated during the championship and the league. You did things that nobody else did to help you get to where you got to go. Would I be right in saying that? Who wants to give away the secrets here? They all just look at me mute.
Shauna, you can answer that one.
Thanks, Maura. Yeah, I suppose having the actual Brendan Martin there for that night was, I think, a shock to all of us. I don't think we knew he was coming. I'm not sure who organised that, but yeah, I suppose maybe we did do things differently this year. I think the girls would agree we probably flew under the radar a lot this year, and maybe people weren't really expecting too much of us. And then maybe then when they started looking at us, it was too late. So I don't know, it was probably a little bit of luck as well as the hard work that we put in.
And I know we touched on it there, but as the dust has settled, it's 4 months on now. How does it feel now? Do you look back a little bit and go, wow, we actually did that? Like, I don't know how it feels for you, Moira, but do you actually, at the time, it was a bit of a whirlwind, but it's settled in a small bit now?
I don't know. Like, I think since the 5th of September, we've been so busy with different, I suppose, duties with the cup and that, and then playing with our clubs as well.
And we're back training, and we've been back training since the 16th of November. So, we're focusing already on 2022. So I suppose when you're kind of in the run of it, and when you're still playing and still involved, it probably won't sink in properly until our playing days are over, I think. But no, I think, it was. I don't think the magnitude of it is as synced in, to be completely honest. But we have enjoyed the last couple of months and the success and the good times that it has brought.
There was lots of scenes, as Maura mentioned there, Moitrasa mentioned there, but one of the scenes that actually really sticks out in my mind is when you won and you ran to Hill 16, which obviously is known for the Dublin end, but it was filled with all the Meath supporters and it was packed, which was great to see, men, women, children, everything. And they all ran down and you all came up to them. It was such a good scene to see. Looking back at that, Shauna, was that a special moment?
Oh, for sure, definitely. I think those few minutes at the end, going from stand to stand, running from the Cusack across the Hogan up to Hill 16, it was amazing memory. They're amazing memories to have, and to see the support we had there that day, as you said, from men, women and children, it was amazing. And especially I think to get to go around and to see all our friends and family on the loop, I just really enjoyed that. And they're definitely memories we'll have forever.
Vicky, this is, and I hope you don't see this as in any kind of way of insulting question, because I don't mean to insult you guys at all, but what I'm going to say is that nobody saw Meath coming. I'm sure you guys saw yourselves coming, and I will hold my hands up. I was one of those people who said there's no way Meath are going to beat Dublin. I just hope it's a good game and keeps us entertained for a while. And that, I feel terrible saying that, but based on what I knew about Dublin, and I suppose my own ignorance, what I didn't know about Meath is why I thought this. At what point during the year did you guys say this is a tangible target and we can actually do this?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think you're the only one that thought that. I think we kind of loved that as well in some senses, and I don't think there's one key moment that I can kind of say, you looked around and said, yeah, we're going to win this. But I think there was small little things along the journey of our first match against Kerry in the league, we lost them in Park Charlton, and then we got a second chance at them in the league final, and we did ourselves justice that day. And then we got a second chance and almost a third chance at Cork in that extra time. And then even the Armagh game, as in people weren't expecting us to win that, so it's kind of we were riding that wave of no expectation. And I think when you're doing that, it's definitely a dangerous thing. And as that belief grew and maybe people's expectations lessened as we got further through the competition, I think that kind of spurred us on and gave us such belief inside the camp. And when you get to experience that with a certain amount of players and people that are involved in it, it's really special and kind of made it all the more special.
How did you block it out though? Because I know everyone says, we don't listen and we don't hear, but it's very, very difficult, I think, in today's age, because you all have a phone, you all have social media, people will, send you clips and this, that and the other. How did you block out the noise of they haven't got hope?
I think in some ways COVID kind of played into it, because we actually didn't even get to do the meet and greet that was supposed to be before the All-Ireland. So none of that took place. So I think maybe that not actually seeing it kind of face to face maybe was played a part of it. I know we did the media night up in Dunganny, and obviously there was those type of questions being thrown out, but again that was kind of just media. And then it was you're walking around your local village or wherever you're from and people are kind of saying it to you. But I think because of COVID you probably weren't interacting, and we were definitely trying to limit our interactions the weeks before the matches, so I kind of think we weren't seeing as much face to face. And you can read an article and stuff like that, but I don't think it's as real as someone coming up to you and kind of saying those type of questions. And then I think a lot of the press around it at the time maybe spurred us on even a little bit more, kind of the narrative that was in the media at the time. So I think maybe it kind of played into our hands in some senses.
Yeah, and me and MT were just speaking before we came on that now almost the ladies' game has gone on to, it's catapulted up again another step. Obviously we've seen Dublin winning for years, but I think when you won it really, everybody was aware, the style you played it in, the way you won it. It was just amazing to see. Moira, my question is, I suppose with supporters, you get a lot of men supporting you now, you have a lot of young boys that look up to you. That was different than probably other years.
Yeah, definitely. We only up really until kind of this year, our main supporters were our parents and our family members, and they would travel to the ends of the earth to watch us play. But I suppose like that again with COVID, you never really got a proper feel for kind of the sport that was there, because you couldn't have spectators at a lot of games. So I suppose the All-Ireland final, like even the semi-final against Cork, it was limited numbers. So it was only really for the All-Ireland final you kind of noticed, God, the whole county's getting behind this. And I think a standout moment was when we were driving up to Croke Park on the way up, and the motorway just came to a standstill, and the guard, the escort, had to kind of separate the traffic, and there was people getting out of their cars and waving flags. And it was only really at that moment we kind of realised, right, okay, the whole county's behind us here. But yeah, I suppose, since then, girls are being recognised on the street. There might be somebody come up to you in a shop and just be like, well done, that was brilliant. And I suppose it just gave the whole county a lift. And I suppose a lot of the girls are very recognisable now. Some probably more than others.
That was going to be my question. The newfound fame. How are you all finding that? Vicky, how do you find it?
Fame's a strong word for sure.
I think I can put you there.
Oh, it is. It's mad, to be honest. It is a bit strange. Like sometimes I'm kind of like out. I'm like, Jesus Christ. But like obviously, like you don't play football for that side of it. But like I think since the All-Ireland and the hype around the game, it's definitely kind of has come in waves. And I suppose it doesn't help that I spend 90% of my time with Emma Duggan and the recognisable hair. So the two of us kind of going anywhere doesn't help too much. But look, it's unbelievable for the team, and I suppose recognition that a lot of the girls are getting, and I suppose even being asked to do a lot of things and stuff like that for the team has been great, because I think 4 or 5 years ago nobody wanted to hear about Meath ladies, so it's been great for us.
What you do have to deal with now, Shauna, though, is that people know who you are now. People are pulling off you to come here to do that, do this, open this, speak to this class, do that. And then you had the benefit of maybe hiding in plain sight last year. You don't have it this year. You are the hunted. You were the hunter, even though nobody really knew it. But now everybody wants to knock you down a step or two. And that means you probably have to up your game or change your game or evolve.
Yeah, and I think I really like that phrase, like of being the hunter or the hunted. I think we want to continue to be the hunter this year. Obviously, it's going to be a very different challenge for us. As you say, there's sort of like a target on our backs now, and we're the team to beat. And of course, everyone is going out to try and beat the All-Ireland champions. Like that's a great target for any team to have. But it's presented a very new challenge for us. And as Vicky and Moira said, we're back training already, and we're really, really looking forward to that challenge. Or we're really looking forward to the year ahead, and we can't wait to get stuck into it.
Do you feel the pressure at all?
Not yet. Maybe we will when the league rolls around. Not feeling it just yet, but who knows? In a few weeks' time, come back to me.
I think it's exactly where you want to be though as well. Like as in, obviously you can switch it both ways. Like last year we were the underdogs, and we loved that title. But then this year, like you're obviously trying to maintain that standard and those things across games. So like in sport, like it's exactly where you want to be. Like you want to be under that pressure, going out and kind of having to show people like the work you've put in, week out. Like
I suppose, we're at the very early stages of the season so far, but I'm assuming everyone must have come back to camp and said to themselves, right, we have to up our game or get a bit smarter, because now people know how we do things. And that can kind of play with your mindset as well a little bit. You start trying to nearly overthink what other people are thinking. Has that happened at all, Maura?
No, I don't think so. And that's not really kind of the team we are. We've never really kind of bought into what other people think of us, or how other people view us. And I suppose that's kind of a bit of a secret to our success, really. We only really kind of care about what's going on within the camp, and from the managers and what they think of us and the standards they set. And I suppose this year for players and management, it's a whole new challenge. Going out, we know, anyone can watch our games over the last year and know exactly what we're going to do. So now we've a new challenge to go out and be better than we were last year. So that's exciting for players and for management. And I suppose, what other people think on the outside is that's their problem. Like joking away, on the inside, we're just focused on kind of doing what we can and being better than we were last year. And that has already kind of been set in motion. Girls are back training hard, and we're really looking forward to the challenge that this year is going to bring.
I think, Vicky, what I loved about the whole Meath thing, and you guys probably didn't even think about this once, but for the neutral fans sitting on the couch at home watching that All-Ireland final, I was thinking, like, this is great, Meath and Dublin going at it, because it's been so long since I'd seen that, and it was like, I was just imagining in my head, you know, when I was a young girl watching this, and it was just the men, it was the Trevor Giles, it was the Charlie Redmonds, it was, you know, all these people that, you know, and actually when I think back as well possibly to the Mayo battles when I was very, very young watching them, they're the memory I have, and I was thinking around the country there are kids who will have memories of watching Meath and Dublin 2.0, but it is women, and it was entertaining football. It was great to watch. I mean, I'm assuming people of a certain vintage kept probably echoing that to you, Vicky, and all the other players as well, about Dublin and Meath and the great rivalry, and isn't it great to have it back?
Yeah, absolutely, and it's funny because I think it was a good few years before, like, since we played Dublin in a competitive game. I know we played them in a challenge game in 2020, but like, it just doesn't compare. And like you said, like, that rivalry was there regardless of how many years we kind of had or hadn't played them. And you know, it's great, like you said, for young children across the country to kind of have those memories. And you know, even people at the moment telling us that their young sons were asking for like the Meath ladies jersey for Christmas, like, and like, I think Keepak on the jersey definitely helps with that and kind of bringing back those memories and that kind of specialness about the whole entire event. But yeah, like you said, like, as in that type of rivalry, and for that to be ever relevant in ladies football as well is huge. And I suppose even just for Leinster this year, like, Westmeath will be back up there and us as well, so it's great for Leinster football as well.
And it was impossible to get that jersey. Like, I don't know how many times I tried, or anyone I knew that was trying to get that Keepak jersey. It was just impossible. But they actually put on a night for you. I think I remember seeing pictures and that. They actually went there and they had some of the 90s team there. I think I remember seeing the likes of, obviously, Sean Boylan was there, maybe Trevor Giles. Shauna, do you remember that night?
Yeah, I do remember some of that week.
Just a small bit.
Yeah, that was actually a really, really nice night. That was on the Friday night after winning on the previous Sunday. And yeah, it was something I suppose Keepak would have always done for the men's team back in the day when they were successful. So they wanted to do a similar event for us. So yeah, that was lovely. And to get to talk to the likes of, as you say, Trevor Giles and Graham Gerrity and these fantastic footballers that I would have looked up to when I was young and playing. That was a really special night for us, and we really enjoyed it.
Have any of you started, you know, rolling up the sleeves of your jerseys, you know, all the time, a la Trevor Giles, and making sure the arms are nicely toned, and if they're not naturally tanned, a good, you know, spray of, I don't know, cocoa brown or something, just to make sure that, you know, you keep that Meath feeling going, like, all the time?
I don't know if anyone's rolling up the jersey now. I haven't seen anyone do that yet, but there's definitely a few sprays of cocoa brown around anyway.
I think lads are worse half the time. Like, I definitely do. Like, girls go out and just throw your hair up or whatever, and the lads be making sure they look right on point.
But the hairstyles,
I don't know about that now. There'll be a few princesses in our camp as well. Now, I don't know if they'll just be thrown up there and going straight out.
I was just going to say there, Vicky, like, don't get me wrong, I have seen the men, they're very, very careful about their hair. Like, back in the day when lads kept their hair very short, it was less of an issue, but now they've styles. So like, there are hairspray, there's gel, there's mousse, there's all those things. But like, the women, you know, not all of them, but you know, some will have the tan, some will have, you know, the nice lashes, the nice brows, and look, whatever works, or the matching headbands and stuff. But I think it's cool that, you know, sometimes you associate one person with the thing, like the way I always think, like, of the Galway Camogie captain Sarah, she'll always have the pink hairband when she's playing, when she takes off the helmet. And I think whenever I think of Meath, in my head I have Trevor Giles and the sleeves. So like, it's cool though that you guys now are associated with this new, I suppose, Maura, this new kind of coming of female sports stars. We had the Cork ladies in football and camogie, then we had the Dublin ladies and doing what they did, and then you guys have just gone off a complete different path, created a whole new different motorway, and it's cool, you're living history.
Yeah, and I suppose when you're in that, it's hard for you to see it or to understand it properly. But like, I just, it's something that I suppose we'll look back on and we'll be like, that was bizarre. But I suppose at the moment, it's just normal. I don't know.
Where for you, obviously, your family are big GA family. I think anyone in Meath will know, you'll see them somewhere on a sideline or involved in some way, Mary and Tom. So obviously, what was it like for them to actually see you win in All-Ireland?
Yeah, it was really special. I suppose, you know, my parents are obviously big fans, but lots of the girls' parents have followed us around the country from when we were under 12s the whole way up. And, you know, it was as much for them as it was for us. I suppose after the final whistle blew, you know, we were all just kind of looking at each other with just complete like excitement. And I suppose when we went over to them, it was just tears, and you know, I suppose it's so special for them. We won't understand kind of what it means to them, I suppose, fully. But yeah, it was a really nice feeling to be able to reward them as well, and to give them that special day in Croke Park. I suppose the year before that, for the intermediate, none of them could be there, and I suppose that was a big driving force this year when we got back to a final, that we really wanted to be able to run over and give them hugs of joy as opposed to them, you know, comforting us. So it was really, really special to be able to share that with all our families as well.
Yeah, it's so special for your families and for your clubs as well. It's huge. Like, this hasn't been done in Meath. So, Vicky, when you went back to Dunboyne, you've got quite a reception.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. I think that we went to Dunboyne on the Thursday of the week of the celebrations, and I think the rest of the girls were kind of hitting a lull, but like I was just on cloud nine, like as in I was just kind of walking around just staring at people, and we were in one of the local pubs, and I was kind of just like literally sitting there in awe just at like so many people you kind of grown up with. And obviously there was a good representation from Dunboyne on the team, you know, with the five of us, so like it was just so special. And even for us, like Sarah and my sisters on the team as well, so for Mum and Dad and my other sister Charlotte, like as in it was just such a nice and special time. And like those nights and stuff like that are memories that we'll definitely have forever.
And Dunboyne still on the road as well.
We are, yeah. We've more than happy now next
AM with Gillette. Put your best face forward with our new and improved